I had played this role for so long that even I was not sure of who was the real me and who was this internal me. Like, I was starting to trick myself.
We're in a space, and we'll get to this, we're in a space where there's a lot of pushback on the medical profession, on the nutrition guidelines, on that kind of stuff. And I try as best as I can to be a defender of doctors who come into the space to heal and so forth. But man, there are just a lot of times where I feel like the system is failing us badly. And this has got to be one of the worst stories.
I wanted to be this mom that would sit on the floor and play with the kids. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home. Not a lot of people get to do that. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home. And I couldn't appreciate what I had when I had it. He's like, a doctor, right? And he says, all of my training tells me you have to be put on a statin. This is what I know. This is how we need to approach this. And then he goes, but there's this guy, Dave.
Tell me who you are and what you do.
My name is Robyn Dobbins. I am a lived experience advocate, which has led me to host a podcast, become a health coach, and now I currently serve as a community coordinator for Metabolic Collective, which is a nonprofit.
Metabolic Collective, which just started up, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's been around for like a year and a half, but they've done a lot of background, just like collecting information from people in the community to figure out what direction they wanted to go.
Now, you say you're a lived experience advocate. Unpack that one for me.
Well, I started with a dietary change when I turned 40. Prior to that, I lived a life where I had a diagnosed mental illness of bipolar disorder, depression, and obsessive compulsive disorder.
All right, let me pause you there.
Okay.
What we're going to do is, if you listen to my podcast, I like to go back.
Okay.
Because we got time.
Sure.
Right? And you have quite a story. So let's go toward, can we literally start when you were first seeing the signs at a younger age?
Sure. Yeah.
That maybe spoke to you being on a different journey than other people?
Well, I first noticed, I guess, that my mental health was struggling when I was in high school. Probably the best way to say it is probably my freshman year in high school. I had a hard time making friends. Even though I went through all of my other schooling with these friends, I had a hard time making friends. And it just knocked me backwards, I guess, in how I felt about myself. At the time, though, saying that you have any sort of mental illness or if you're depressed or anything like that was frowned upon, and you get made fun of for doing that. So I hid it. I hid how I felt for years. So that's really like the first time I ever noticed feeling that way. And I struggled through high school. I struggled through my sister's is 3 years older than me. So when I was a freshman, she was a senior, and she kind of took me under her wing, and that kind of saved me because I was planning how not to be around anymore. Like, I had a lot of suicidal ideation at the time, and I just didn't want to exist. So that's where that first started. And after she graduated, it was like each year I had to make a new set of friends because nobody, like, I was always friends with the seniors. So the seniors graduated and went away. So I made friends with the seniors the next year, and they always graduated and went away. Then I went off to college, and I made friends there. Like, I didn't feel alone there. I had a really small core group of friends, but I didn't feel like I was very successful there. Like, I always had this in my head that people were somehow just better than me. And I couldn't explain why they were better than me or why I couldn't do the things that they could do. Like, they're all passing their classes and I'm struggling to get by, or that just things just, I always just assumed that it was just innately, they have it whatever it is, and I don't, and I'm just always going to struggle, and I'm never going to know what to do with myself. Or so I just never had. I think it all boils down to I never had the best self-esteem, and I never knew how to move away from that.
Isn't it common, though, at that age, particularly given what adults are telling us, that you're thinking these are just awkward, rearing years where adolescence is awkward, the teen years are awkward. I certainly got a lot of that as I'm growing up, where it's like, well, high school is just weird. And
Yeah.
after you're past high school, you'll find your way. You'll get your bearings, things along those lines. And everything seems like a bigger deal. But that said, you did bring up something that everyone should pay attention to. If you have suicidal thoughts, that's a really big deal. That's something worth zeroing in on. If it's especially not just, in a moment, but it's actually something you're really thinking through a lot.
Yeah, and that's exactly what was going on, especially in high school when this kind of first appeared. It was just going through different scenarios. I've never acted on any of them, thankfully, but that was what was going through my mind all the time. And I talk about this quite frequently. It's exhausting. Like you're writing this line, that life doesn't need to feel the way that it's feeling, and you can't explain why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, but you're trying to put on this appearance to everyone else that everything is fine. So that's a lot of work, and it's very, very exhausting. But I was involved. I was in all these clubs. Just a fun fact. I lettered in football. So I was on the football field for 3 years of my high school experience, and I was doing stuff. I was in presidents of different organizations. Nobody from outward appearances would know that as soon as I was away from all of that I was just miserable, just absolutely miserable in my mind.
I think that's another thing that people don't realize. So something I've not talked about that much publicly, but hint to a lot, is I have a lot of OCD. Like, I'm literally on the spectrum to an extent. And a lot of my own personal gauge is when I'm by myself. Like, if I'm connecting with people and so forth, that kind of, portrayal, if you will, which I think almost everybody does have to some extent, this kind of like on version of themselves, particularly, if you're an entertainer, or if you're an executive and you're in certain meetings, there's a persona of sorts that you're adopting. But how much do you have like a really good meeting, and then you get out of the meeting and you're like, that was awesome, struck all the right chords, versus how often do you have like a string of successes and you never quite feel like you really owned them? Like, you're going through the motions almost as in a performative way. But ultimately, when you're by yourself, it doesn't sink in quite to the same degree. You still, and that's a lot of the core of imposter syndrome. It's sort of feeling like they're eventually going to figure out that I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not who I'm portraying myself
Right.
to be.
Right,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
And to the extent, and like I said, I'm on the spectrum. I'm not hardcore. I'm pretty high functioning. But that said, it's hard to describe this to another person, because the exhaustion is exactly where it comes into play, is that you burn a lot of energy.
Yeah,
this
you're
kind of
playing.
internal conflict.
You're essentially two different people, and I'm not saying a personality disorder, but you're essentially two different people. You're the person you are inside of your head, and then you're the person you are, like, you're always acting. And I talk about this with my daughter right now. It's like, or not right now, when she was in middle school and she was like, Mom, can I start wearing makeup? And I was like, yes, but you can't put on a mask. Like, and I think that I see that a lot now. It's like people aren't comfortable with who they are, so they do something outwardly that's a mask. Well, I just jumped into being active in a lot of stuff. It was also a deterrent. I was very active. I was always busy. So that way I didn't have as much of that alone time. But as soon as I was by myself, it was all starting up again. Like I just did not have any desire to keep going. And that's when that exhaustion sits in. And, I'm not going out and doing stuff outside of, all these activities I was doing in school. As soon as I go back, there was no more. Like as soon as I got home, I couldn't go do anything else. I was just simply wiped out.
So you were reflecting on how you suspected that it might be medical, that it might not just be an awkward phase in your life. At what point were you suspecting that?
Well, that's interesting. I actually did suspect at that time that something
In
was
high school.
in high school. I did suspect that it was more than what I was letting on. I just didn't feel comfortable talking about it. I mean,
And you didn't feel like you could reach out for help? Did you talk to your parents about it?
Nope. Nobody knew. Well, my sister. My
sister.
sister knew. So my sister knew, which is why she took me under her wing, which always makes me emotional. But yes, she knew. She kept that secret for me, which perhaps was not the best secret. Maybe she should have said, "Hey, everybody, something's up with Robyn. We need to get her some help." But yeah, that's how that went down. I just didn't feel comfortable. And that's why you ask in the beginning, what is a lived experience advocate? Well, that's why I talk and speak so openly about my experience, because I don't want people to hide it. I don't want it to get to a place where it's too far and there's no return. That, I want everyone to know that it is okay to start to speak about how you're feeling and get the help that they may need to succeed and be better, and get rid of those kind of, if you want to call them demons, but get rid of those internal feelings and stop fighting. Put that energy for the fight into healing.
Made
Me cry already.
It's all right. We're almost close to even, but
Not quite yet. Yeah, I got to get like full tears.
yeah,
but-
exactly. Yeah. This is a little bit of an inside joke for the people who don't know. Quite literally during your interview, and it's because it connected me to something that happened to me in my past. I don't think it made it to the cut of the film, so I'm not spoiling anything by mentioning it. Your discussion on suicidal ideation brought back for me a friend of mine who I forever think about because took his own life. And it really, I think for anybody who's in the aftermath of that, there's this, it's almost like a curse. You wonder what you could have said or done differently. Mm-hmm. And it's tough because we're the only species that kills ourselves. We're the only ones, right? So we're the apex predator. We've got all of these amazing cognitive capabilities, and yet we have a sizable portion of our population that chooses to end its life. And a big part of the concern is that social media is not making it better. That's one of the downsides, one of the dark sides, particularly with young girls. The suicide rates are far higher. And I think about how much when I was in high school, my awkwardness and getting teased and all that kind of stuff, it felt so big to me in my life that I can't imagine what it must be like for kids these days. I can't imagine.
No, everything's just like quick. It's in real time, and you don't get a chance to ponder and think about it and work it through. It's like I've got this idea popped into my head, and now I'm going to act on it, and there's not a lot of in between. It's very sad.
Well, and bullying,
mm-hmm.
Take whatever we thought of as bullying in our day
and put it on the internet.
Yeah, multiply it to obscene amounts.
Mm-hmm.
So in case we haven't laid it on thick enough for anybody listening, it's serious business. It's the most serious thing. So yes, it's like you hear it all over the place, but for real, you got to be talking to somebody about it.
Yes.
And you've got to, you have to take it seriously. If you're having these thoughts, that it's not,
It's not just that either. It's if you hear somebody else and
Yeah.
you hear that they're saying something that makes you ask a question in your head, are they okay? Ask them. Ask them if they're okay. Because sometimes just reaching out just like that in a casual manner could stop it dead in its tracks.
yeah. A question I was told later in life that's a good question is, how often do you have this kind of thought? Because that's the real signal. People who like genuinely are embarrassed to admit it will have a tough time answering it, but that is a signal in and of itself.
It's interesting that you say that because when this did actually come to its head, that was the question that was asked.
Okay. So are we getting to that?
Sure, let's get to that.
Are we still in your timeline? Are we still as you're leaving school?
Well, no, that question wasn't asked to me until I was married and had a child. So if we want to go through, just take a quick jaunt through college, I don't recall having those like suicidal thoughts anymore. This is when I started getting kind of the anger, and that's where those things started to come in, which ultimately led to this kind of bipolar diagnosis. Is how I was handling different emotion, like not the way other people handle emotion. Like I immediately like get angry, but it's like taking jealousy to an extreme. And that was where those questions were, well, how come they can do it, but I can't? And, or, well, they must have something special that was given to them and I was not given. It was never like I was told later when I was going through counseling that you don't grow up past the age where you first get sick. So it was like I was in this middle school mindset all through college. It was like, there's no blame on me. Obviously, I'm doing everything absolutely right. Everyone else just has something special. And I was just not given that whatever special. Like there was a big chip on my shoulder. It was not, and there was nothing about myself in there.
So it was not specifically anger at a particular person. It was more your lot.
Yeah, my lot in life is I didn't get any of the special treatment that all of these other people clearly got. It was not at all I have to work for what I want. That idea, I mean, even though I was in college working towards a goal, it just seemed like for everybody else they were able to do all of these things and I wasn't. And it wasn't that I wasn't putting effort into my studies or into the work that was required of me. It seemed like in my head, it seemed like everyone could just kind of sit around and just make it happen. And I had to work harder. So that was making me angry. Like I didn't understand why it came so easily to everyone else. And so clearly the next step isn't I have to work harder or get in. What had nothing to do with me. It was they were given something. Their parents gave them something. They had a better life growing, whatever. Like it was just pushing all of that on other people. And so that's when I started being just kind of angry all of the time.
And so a lot of times people associate what you're going to be talking about with your diagnosed mental illness, the big highs and the bottom outs, the big lows. But the way you're describing it, it's kind of a bit more of a continuum.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where in high school it was more implosion, it was more insecurity, but not quite manifesting to the level of anger that you were experiencing coming into college. What were you going to college for?
Environmental education.
Environmental education. Okay. This will be interesting to bring back to the diet a little bit later.
Yes.
So did you ultimately get your degree?
I did.
Yeah. And had you met your husband by this point?
No.
Okay.
That was later. So yeah. So I mean, I make it through college. I'm not feeling the best, I guess, internally, but I feel like I had it smushed down. Like I had played this role for so long that even I was not sure of who was the real me and who was this internal me. Like I was starting to trick myself. So, and maybe that's really what it is. It's not that it was gone, but I was able to put the mask on. The mask that I tell my daughter not to put on. I was able to put the mask on and even fool myself into how I was feeling. But things like leaving college, break to leave college for the summer, the anxiety and panic that I would have about going back, even though I had been there before, it's not like it was a new experience for me. It would be debilitating at times. Like I can't go back there. Like I just can't do it. Like I can't show my face there. Like, and have to really talk myself into doing that, going back to a place that I was familiar, a place that I had a goal, all of that. I mean,
you got the degree.
Yeah, I finished.
Yeah.
I finished, but it was just like these things that in hindsight, it's like, I guess people get nervous about doing things, but this was debilitating anxiety about having to go back. And I was starting to, like, in the summer breaks when I would go home, I ended up spending a lot of time, like I would stay at my sister's house instead of at my mom's house. And I do recall one time there was a gathering with my sister and all of her friends, and they were like, go to the store and get the chips. And I went to the store, and the chip aisle was just chips, like blue bags, red bags, orange bags, yellow, like just, I couldn't make a decision. I was like full panic. So I started having these like anxiety-ridden moments, panic attacks on the floor, just crying. Like so even though I was trying hard to stifle and block it, and even fooling myself, when it bubbled up and bubbled out, it was complete debilitating.
And let me see if I can describe something that not a lot of people might pick up. It's not that you're going, oh, I don't know whether I want to get these chips or these chips. The debilitating thoughts are, oh my gosh, I don't know which they're going to be upset with me about getting the wrong chips for, right? I'm going to come back and they're going to be like, Robyn, we told you
Yes.
to get shit. You didn't already know that we specifically want Doritos, Cool Ranch, or whatever. Didn't you listen earlier in the like these kinds of thoughts when you're an overthinker?
Yeah.
come literally they come, and they're almost as if they're happening in real time, right? They're happening with you right there, and you're replaying these scenarios, right? And to the extent to where that creates indecision, it makes it weirder for people who don't know what's going on in your head as to why that would be a problem at all.
And then you want to, on top of that, the exhaustion of being two different people, the outward you and the inward you, and you're having this ridiculous conversation in your head about being wrong, and I don't want to be wrong, and I don't want people looking at me and judging me, and I don't know if I can handle it if somebody said something. Like, if somebody said something, I would probably just run out of the room crying, because I just didn't have enough capability of change. Like, anything that would be different than normal would just knock me off the edge.
So you're through college. Do you end up getting a job with your degree?
That's a fantastic question. So I had this dream. I grew up in Maryland, and I had this dream that I would work for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, which I did. Actually, for 2 summers, I worked for them just as like summer jobs and internships and whatever. When I got out, it's a interesting fact. Getting a job in environmental education is not exactly the easiest. It's very niche. And even though I was in that atmosphere, and like ecotourism was really becoming a big thing, I didn't really get into that. I did serve my first year out of college. I served a year with AmeriCorps. So basically, the CCC as we know it, I was on a Maryland's version, the Maryland Conservation Corps. So I did that for a year, and that was one of the closest times that I've ever been employed in my field of study. We would lead like ecotourism, like we worked for the state park, so we would do like ecotourism stuff, or I would work in the environmental room at the campsite and show people like shells and just teach that kind of stuff, or we would make trails. So I did all of that in service after after college. But then I ended up in Western Maryland at a treatment facility for youth boys. First I was a counselor. They lived there full time in camps. And I was there at first as counselors, and I realized I'm a tiny person, and these young boys were full-grown men, and if there was an altercation, there was nothing I could do to stop it. So I moved into teaching math, middle and high school math.
It came out of nowhere.
Comes out of nowhere, yeah. Like I have these secrets, I guess. But yeah, I taught middle and high school math, and that's where I met Matt. Matt came on later as a counselor because he could stop the boys from fighting where I could not, and so that's where I met Matt, and we eventually got married. So even at that time, so I finished my year of service with AmeriCorps, and I went into this role, and I was a math teacher. Even at that time, it was like, well, now, and I think this is probably normal, when you leave college and you can't quite find a job in your field, then you have this very overwhelming, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I had no idea what the future was going to hold. And it was very, very scary. I was away from home on my own. That was like, aside from college, that was the first time that I was away from home on my own and trying to figure it all out, but still had these feelings like, again, I'm around all these people and it's all just coming so easily for them. Obviously, somebody handed them something that I didn't get. And again, back to the lot in life, my lot in life is that I'm always going to be the last. I'm the loser here. I just never had the self-esteem to push myself further and try to do better. Like I never, ever looked at myself internally and said, there's things here that you could do to better yourself. It was always just throw blame on other people. Just really just very immature. Yeah.
So you meet Matt. Mm-hmm. Now the tough question. These things that we just discussed, did you feel like you could talk to him about it while you were dating?
I don't recall ever talking to him about it. I was just so used to hiding. I was just so used to being a different person outwardly than I was inwardly. Interesting though, like while we were dating, he was working at that camp. You literally get 48 hours off when you work at the camp. So I have a day job and I go home every night. He's not there. He's not around. He's at this camp and he gets 48 hours off. So our dating is like 48 hours at a time, like very condensed. And then he goes back to work. We could see each other at work, but we couldn't let anybody know we were dating. So it was a big secret. Some of the boys figured it out, but most didn't until it was like, I'm engaged. Who are you engaged to? Mr. Dobbins. So, yeah, which blew up the school and but no, I didn't. Of course, that time too was very different. Like you got to consider we're dealing with the emotions of these young boys. They're sent there either by their parents or by the state because something has happened in their life. Like
so it's a get your act straight.
It's a get yourself together school. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So we're dealing with their.
That helps, by the way, set a little bit better why you being a smaller female. Kind of relevant in this topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were times where we would have to actually like hold them down and stop them from hurting themselves or each other. Like, wow. Yeah. So I was in that situation once and I was like, this is not the thing for me. I'm a tiny person. So, we were dealing with their emotions. It was really interesting. Like I go on this job interview for this thing and the guy that's interviewing me gets me to full out cry like about my relationship with my mother and like all that. So that's probably the first time in, let's say 10 years that I actually open up about what's going on internally because this school is working on feelings and getting these young boys to process their feelings so that they're not stealing cars, so that they're not abusing drugs, so that they're not doing this thing. Like, let's find out what's going on inside. As part of the interview process, they kind of work you through the same experience, and I just, like, lose it. So I do, I guess, talk about these feelings with the group that I was with when I was a group leader, but not too much because I don't want the kids to think I'm a wackadoo. And then, you know, we're in this like intensive, all of us that work there, in that 48 hours off. It's like we can either talk about feelings or we can just not talk about feelings and party for 48 hours and then go back to work. So that's pretty much how that went down. We would choose the latter and not really talk about our feelings so much.
I think there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this is the commonality. The commonality is you're already minimizing your feelings. Mm-hmm. These dark feelings, you're already going, it's not even worth bothering people about. Like right. It's my thing. I'm going to deal with it. I've been dealing with it my whole life. So it's fine. It's another day. It's another month. It's another year, whatever.
Absolutely. Right? All of that. Yes. Yeah, I've managed this. I've managed this since I was a freshman in high school. What could go wrong? So I can just keep it to myself. I don't need to let anybody else know about it.
Minimizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get married.
And about a year later, we have our first child, and this is when things really start to go south. So I worked up until my son was born, not at the school. We had changed jobs by then. I was a printer. So I worked as a printer and
trying to round out every job.
Just everything, just random things. Like I was trained to run a offset press. Like I have a skilled trade. Like weird, just random stuff. But anyway, I was working as a printer, and it's not really the best environment for a pregnant woman, but I worked there. And then after he was born, it was like, we have a decision to make, as many young parents have to do, is do I stay at home and we, kind of remove that salary and stay at home and raise the kids, or do we take the salary that I'm making, which isn't really all that much, and dump it into childcare and have somebody else raise your kid? So we decided I should stay home. It was it's our decision. It wasn't like I was forced to stay home. We made this decision, and I was 100% on board. But the stress of being responsible for an infant, being home alone with only an infant, whatever hormonal wackiness happens after you have had a child, just put me in, and let's just say, frankly, our finances at the time, and just put me in a wild spin, just a wild spin. I started panicking a lot more. But I wasn't doing anything to our child, but I really didn't want to care for him. I was like, this is too much. It's a burden. It's taking me, it definitely rocked me off of normal, the routines that I had set for myself. Like, you can't do that when you have an infant, and you do what the infant wants to do. You don't do what you want to do. And that just really shook me. And then on top of it, like, I'm in charge of the bills, and we don't have two incomes coming in. We now have an extra mouth to feed, and like diapers and that kind of stuff. I was trying to sit down and like do our ledger, and things weren't balancing out the way I wanted them to, obviously. And I shut down. I started writing notes and putting them, just like, I'd write, I don't want to be here anymore, on just a piece of paper and a random envelope. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. They were everywhere. I don't even know where. They were everywhere. And Matt, I guess, found one. And he came up to me while I was working on this ledger, and he was like asking me things, and I was just like overwhelmed and upset. And he goes, "Are you okay?" We start kind of getting into an argument. I don't even remember what it's about, but we start getting into an argument that I was so just messed up. I couldn't speak. So he would say things to me, and I just started writing stuff down, and he'd have to read it, and then he'd respond and then write stuff down, and I couldn't repeat it. And that's when he goes, "How often do you feel like this?" And I was like, "All the time." I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so he calls the doctor, I guess. I don't know who he calls. He calls a doctor. And they said, ask her if she wants to hurt herself. And he asked me, and I said, yeah. And he goes, do you want to hurt? They said, ask if you want to hurt the baby. And I said, yes, but I won't. Like, I know I won't. And they said, take her to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. It was the first time I had to leave my son, so it was really emotional. I'm riding this line. Like, I'm riding this line of who I feel on the inside and this who I am on the outside, and the responsibilities that I have to manage. And it's like, I'm a mom, and I breastfeed my child, and he's got to go somewhere, and he's not going to be able to eat. I can't leave. I have to stay here. Like, I was so just, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just everything all at once just happening, and I'm trying to manage all of the things. I can't speak. I can't stop crying. And luckily we lived at home at the time, like in my hometown at the time, and my sister was able to pick up my kid. So she had him. I knew he was safe. And even though I didn't work, there was food in the freezer for him. So she was able to take care of him. And I went to the hospital. It was mostly ended up being observation. I did not get admitted. Someone else came in with a much bigger, more traumatizing event that everybody ran off and helped that person. But it did feel like not only was I being observed, but Matt was also being observed to find out if he was doing something to me. But it wasn't. He never. He was there. I wouldn't let him leave. He was always my rock. And so I wouldn't allow him to leave, even though they kept saying he needs to get out of here. We need to look at you by yourself. And I wouldn't let him go. And eventually, because of this, I think mostly because of this other event, they just said, you have postpartum depression. Here's your drugs. And I was put on antidepressants. And that's just kind of where that was. And I was sent home from there with just my bag of drugs and go get your baby. Here's your drugs, and go from there.
I'll admit I'm a little surprised by the ending of what you said, because I thought for sure they would. I mean, did you have a session where you were like unpacking all of this while you were at the hospital, where you're like talking to?
No, it was a really, really weird experience.
Wow.
I was in this room. I knew that it was a room for like a psychiatric patient. The bed was minimal, and there was nothing else in this room. There was just nothing.
To reduce the likelihood of self-harm.
Correct. So I knew what I was, why I was there, but also had no idea why it needed to be this, it doesn't need to go this far. It doesn't have to be like this. And I don't know if it was just where I was and they couldn't handle having two patients come in at once or what, but we were there a long time. I don't recall how long, but it wasn't overnight, but we were there a long time. And it was just like, I guess they determined that Matt was okay. Like he's not doing something to her. This is something going on specifically with her, and he can help. He can take care of her. And so basically like I'm released to his care. Not that that's what the words were, but I really don't remember much about it. I really don't. I just remember being in there and being very concerned about how my son was going to eat because I wasn't available to him. And Matt probably could tell this story in a completely different way, because I know afterwards, like he talked about how he felt like he was the one being observed and not me at that time.
I'm kind of having a tough time getting over the lack of there being a medical professional trained in having this conversation with you. Like
it was just assumed, oh, well, she just had a baby, so obviously it's postpartum depression.
okay, but yeah, again,
I get it.
I hate to labor the point, but
it doesn't make sense. But I also think it doesn't make sense to us now because we know more.
yeah.
So I don't know if it makes sense. This was in,
And you may be right. It's just, again, I feel bad that for the extraordinary, because okay, you just set up the whole landscape. You clearly reached a boiling point where you were communicating above and beyond all those points before to a new listener that you had to have been terrified to be sharing this with, and acquiesced to the steps of going to get immediate and vital help. And I feel like, yes, I mean, I'm if you've listened to me, if you talk to me, if you know that we're in a space, and we'll get to this, we're in a space where there's a lot of pushback on the medical profession, on the nutrition guidelines, on that kind of stuff. And I try as best as I can to be a defender of doctors who come into the space to heal and so forth. But man, there are just a lot of times where I feel like the system is failing us badly. And this has got to be one of the worst stories, because given the circumstance that you were in that moment, I
mean, and honestly, it gets worse because there was never, after that, it was just, here's your prescription. My OBGYN called and said, yeah, I agree with what the hospital says. You have postpartum depression. Just keep taking those pills. I was never referred to anyone else. So I didn't even have like a counselor to try to talk to. I had nothing, wow. No other referral. It was, here's your pills. That might not be the first of my woes within that space. And you know why advocacy becomes so incredibly important.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We just got to call it what it is. You're helping to bridge the gap that shouldn't be there. Okay. Moving beyond that. So now you've got pills.
Yep.
You start going on the medication. How is it helping or not helping?
Let me also say that this was in 2005, so it was a long time ago. My son is turning 21. So I don't really remember. I just remember that I was taking, I was regular with the pills. I never really skipped the pills.
What they prescribed you were taking.
I was taking, yeah. So, and it was an antidepressant. I cannot recall which one. I'm not one of those people that remembers all that stuff. So I don't recall which one. It was an antidepressant. I took it as told. And I took it for a long time. So, we had done stuff like I still remained home. There was never any more issue with me, like wanting to hurt myself or hurt my son. I became the mom that I thought that I could be, like managing having a baby and dinner on the table when Matt comes home from work. And like I said, I lived close to family. So my sister, her husband worked, they have children. So I would have them at the house. Like I'm taking care of everybody's kiddos and feeding everybody. So it was actually a good time, being close to family. And like I started organizing weekly meals and that kind of stuff. So it was a good time. So I suppose then it was working. I don't know that I can attribute it to the pills, but maybe it was. Obviously it was better. Matt gets another job and we ended up moving. So all of that comes to a drastic change. And I was pregnant. So, I didn't want to be on the pills. I had no idea what these pills, this is 2 years later. So I didn't know what these pills would do to a baby I'm growing. So I asked the doctor, should I go off of them? And again, and they were kind of the same way. They were like, yeah, we don't exactly know what this is going to do. Like, it wasn't really like that big of a conversation. And there was not a like titrate off this medication situation. It was like, you're pregnant, you're on a pill. We don't think you should be on it. Go off. And then I remember distinctly going back to the doctor. I can't tell you how much longer, but I'm still pregnant. So it's within that time that I said, I'm not winning this battle. So my husband travels a lot for work. And this isn't for the job he has now, but he has always traveled a lot for work. And when we moved in this situation, he was gone. He would sometimes leave on a Sunday night and come home on a Saturday morning. So we're back to the 48 hours again. But this time I have a toddler, I'm pregnant, and we have moved. I don't know a soul. And once I got off those pills, I wasn't winning that battle. And this is where that anger that builds up is getting taken out on my kid, because I don't have anywhere to put it. So here we are. We have a 2-year-old toddler, little boy who loves trains. And I won't play with him because it's down in the basement and I don't want to go down the steps. And then it's like these fights. Or I want to put him down for a nap and he won't go to sleep because he's a toddler boy. He wants to do stuff. But even though it's nap time, he won't go lay down for a nap. And I'm so mad that I'm like holding the door shut and he's banging on it. And I'm crying on the other side because I just need a minute, right? And I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. So I asked, even though I was pregnant, I asked to go back on the medication. And I do know at the time, our marriage was really suffering. I don't know if it was because of my anger, because he was traveling all the time, because everything was just so different. But we started going to counseling together at Matt's request. And I just remember one event where it was like we were all talking and I got so mad because the counselor and Matt just like look at me and they're like, it's you. You're making this happen. And I was like, how come we're not looking at everybody? How come it's all landing on me? And so I kind of blow off and that whoever it was, counselor or whatever, was like, she needs to go to hospital again. Matt didn't take me though. I guess I fought it, but I do remember that happening. Like it was like my reaction or response to whatever our conversation was in that room wasn't appropriate and was alarming to the professional. And I don't know why I didn't end up going back to the hospital for that event. And I think, I'm not sure, but my daughter may have been born at the time, but I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it all just kind of happened, and I went back on medicine, and I don't know if it's done anything to her. I think my daughter's a pretty well-rounded person, so I think
she seems fantastic.
So yes, you've gotten to meet her. So I think she turned out okay, but I was like intensely worried about what I was doing by taking this medication and not knowing, what the consequences could be further down the line, and knowing that I had that conversation with the doctor and them not really knowing the answer either. That's a concern. So already things are out of whack, and then I have like these intense concerns, and it just wasn't a good time. It was a very, very dark time. And I actually recall calling it that, like that this is a dark time. Trying to potty train a kid and just being angry, like that doesn't work. Like, go to the bathroom, and then you're like screaming, and and I was taking it out on a 2-year-old, and I do feel like that was very harmful for him. And I try not to live life with regret, but I feel so horrible for that. I wanted to be this mom that would sit on the floor and play with the kids. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home. Not a lot of people get to do that. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home, and I couldn't appreciate what I had when I had it. And it was a very hard time. So we end up moving again. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why. Maybe I was just tired of it. I don't know. I didn't tell my new doctors that I was ever on that medicine. And I just stopped taking it. I didn't take it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. and just try to manage life with a husband that travels all the time, and now
Young
two
children.
babies. Yeah, two very
Yes.
young children. As you can imagine, that did not turn out so well. The anger levels were so extreme. Just that's the only I just would yell all the time. Just yell at my children. Instead of sitting on the floor, they're looking up. I'm their mommy, and instead of sitting on the floor and playing with them or making sure everything's good, I'm just angry. I'm just angry all the time, and I can't stop it. And I don't know why I'm angry. And I think it's more like this OC thing. It's like I want to have a system. I want to have control. I want to have you just simply can't do that when you have children. It's not possible. I'm on my own. I don't know anyone here. We've not moved again. I've got no one, and that ends up very poorly. So that's when I really start recognizing that this is a bigger problem that I can't manage on my own anymore. And I started reading books. I was reading just books about people who had some sort of mental illness. And what started resonating with me were the stories that were coming up from people who were bipolar. So I am reading these books, and I'm like, this sounds like me. This sounds like me. This sounds like me. And I do finally say to Matt, I think I may be bipolar. I've read this, and it almost describes me to a T. So we just go to my general practitioner, and I tell him what's going on. Like, I have these moments where I'm very angry. I have these moments where I can't, like these days, like days on end where I can't sleep. Or I need something clean, and I just clean it. Like it gets. I was involved in service has always been important to me. By this point, my son is old enough; he's in Boy Scouts, and I was involved with Boy Scouts, and there was organizing to be done, which obviously I'm going to do because I organize the best. No, and it was these like really just long, detailed, every which way scenario that could happen when we go to camp, and I'm sending it to parents, and then it'd be like, oh, I forgot about this scenario, to shoot off another one, like just like constantly having to do something, and it gets simply just out of control. So I tell my doctor what I've been reading, what I've been thinking, and he goes, yeah, it does sound like you might be bipolar. Here's a prescription for an antipsychotic. He does then send me to a psychiatrist. So that's good. So that's a step above what happened in the hospital after having my son. He sends me to a psychiatrist, and this is where I feel it gets a little interesting, I suppose, is that at this time we live in South Carolina, and apparently this is like a psychiatry desert, because the only one that's close to us is like 45 minutes away. I already have like this extreme guilt because medication is not inexpensive. We're only on one salary still because I'm still staying at home. So anything that I do for me, I feel intensely guilty about. And now my husband has to take off of work to stay home with the kids so that I can go to the doctor and then get prescribed a medication that's ridiculously expensive, that is taking away from the bottom line of our family. So now I have like extreme guilt piled up on all of these feelings. But do feel that it's important to go through this process. Going to a psychiatrist was, here's a form, fill it out. It's like numbers, like asking a question, and then you do numbers. And then you go in, and then I would go in and sit down, and they would read the form. Okay. I think you need this antipsychotic at this dose with this antidepressant at this dose. Come back and see me in a month, and we'll see how that's going. Go back in a month. fill out my numbers. That doesn't seem to be working. Let's try to change this antipsychotic to this antipsychotic again, but let's change the dose of the antidepressant. So it's every time I go in, they're just fiddling with how much or which type.
So you don't end up in a session where you're quite literally discussing all of what we're talking about here.
No.
Right?
No.
Okay.
No. That is left up to me to figure out on my own. Well, this office is closing down. You need to find a new place. I find a new place. It's even further away from home. They take me off of everything the first doctor puts me on and puts me on what they think I should be on. This office is closing down. Go to another one. It's even further away. At this point, I'm like, as soon as I walk in the waiting room and I see the placard for whatever medication is there, whoever
preferred.
stopped by and
Yeah.
left that placard and gave them a pen and whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm going off of what I'm on now and I'm going on that. And of course, they're all brand new, name brand, a couple $1,000s a month, like extremely expensive medications. It just adds to my guilt. But I think at this time, the only way I can manage this beast that I'm carrying with me is through medication.
It's what I thought as I'm heading into college myself, having a friend who had bipolar, I was coming to grips with what is true, which is that you can't just tell somebody to snap out of it.
Right.
Just don't think about the ugly stuff. Don't, woo earlier version of me would keep thinking this could, it's just a matter of like being a supportive enough friend that I could get them to see the sunnier side of life. The me of today is kind of embarrassed about that. But conversely, what I thought was the maturing moment was thinking, yeah, some conditions like bipolar, they just have to be treated with medication. It is what it is. If you were unlucky enough to have the draw of having bipolar, it's lifelong medication, and hopefully they get better and better, but there's just no getting around it. That's all you can do is treat it.
That's exactly what I thought. And I think more people today think that. Yeah. I mean, and that's just the reality of how this looks right now. Again, where advocacy comes into play. But I honestly thought that was what my lot in life was, is that I was going to be on antipsychotics and depressants for the rest of my life. And I can honestly say that I don't think they did anything. What they did do was sedate me. And that's really all they did. So, I would set an alarm in the morning to wake up and get my children ready for school. I would take them to school. I would come back and I would set an alarm to wake up so that I would be there when the bus came. I didn't even have enough energy to go pick them back up from school. I had to wait for them to come home on the bus. We would get through whatever nighttime things needed to get through. And like if it was an extreme homework night and it pushed our timeline back, that's where the anger comes back into play, because I can't go back to bed because I got to deal with these situations. So I'm still angry if my eyes are open, and if my eyes are closed, then it's nothingness. It's quiet. So it like condensed everything that I was going through into 2 or 3 lucid hours, and then I was asleep. And there's times where again, I should be hanging out and playing with the family or just doing things with the family. And I'm just sitting on the couch. Like all through that time, I felt like I was watching like a movie of my life around me. Like I could see everything that was going on, but I could not participate in any of it. It just wasn't, that's what those medicines were doing to me. I couldn't participate. It never felt like relief. It just made it so that I was able to be propped up in a corner somewhere and not be screaming at people for a small amount of time. And when that kind of wore off, it was all screaming all the time and then sleep. There wasn't much quality of life
I
there
mean,
at
what
all.
you just described is a very sizable amount of your everyday being completely unconscious.
Yeah.
I mean, you were sleeping all night. You prep them enough so that they can get to school, and then you conk out for the rest of that.
And then let's remember that my husband travels for work. So it's taking care of all the food, taking care of, just all of the things. Like all of that is still there. I just can't do them. So much fell on Matt's plate during that time that he'd have to kind of come in and swoop in and do all the things that I wasn't able to do.
Now, he knew you were struggling with this. He's supporting you, getting the help. By the way that you describe it, it sounds like it's really almost more of a burden you're putting on yourself for what it takes. Not that you're not feeling the burden together, just that you're struggling with a lot of guilt and feeling like this disease is really impacting everyone's lives.
It was hard on all of us.
Everybody. And so I mean, I just can't imagine how dead-endish this, by the way you're describing this, it feels, because, hey, you figured out it's bipolar. All right, let's do what we need to do. And you're now on your third clinic.
Exactly.
With a third new set of drugs.
Not even third. I mean, it was every time. It was never, ever consistent. Every time I went in, something changed. So it would either be a full medication change, or I'd be going off of one and adding a new one, or it just was never like consistent. It was always something different. And yes, we both agreed that this is what I needed in order to make me better, and it was worth the expense. It was worth the time that it took. Neither one of us seeing that things aren't actually better here. I mean, I can go back and I look at pictures and it's just me just sitting somewhere. There's stuff going on, and then there's me sitting over there. And
when the documentary team was going through your story and looking through the footage, you had plenty of pictures of where you're off on a couch and you're like looking at I think the one that they have in the film is like one of the hardest ones to look at, because it's almost like perfectly framed in that you're way back and on a couch and you're looking, but your kids are like up in the foreground.
And
anyway.
It was Easter. They're holding Easter baskets, so they were running around finding their hidden eggs, and I'm sitting in a corner, wrapped in my robe, watching. Not part of it. I can't imagine what Matt's going through. I really can't. Like his side of the story is just so different. He is living all of this with me, trying to manage the household with a pretty absent spouse and trying to make it all work. I don't know how he didn't leave. I don't.
But he didn't.
He didn't. Somehow he makes it through. Somehow we make it through. But I think he had every reason to just be like, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm out. Like, he totally could have done that. And I don't think I would have blamed him for it.
Now the foreshadowing question. Is there anybody who is in your life, any material you came across, anything that suggested to you that what you're eating might be relevant?
No. No, and look, I'm awake for seconds at a time. I'm grabbing Pop-Tarts, Hot Pockets, all about the Hot Pockets. I loved just a bowl of cereal, stuff that I didn't have to spend a lot of time preparing, or, whatever. I'm making chicken nuggets for the kids. I'm going to eat whatever they don't eat, that kind of stuff. Like, there was no nutrition going on. It was just quick foods and, what you can find in the grocery store, our American fare.
And this is the other kind of thing before we get to where we're going. Often in a situation like yours, it's like one of the very last joys in life is, hey, at least I can enjoy food. And
Right.
by enjoy food, it's that kind of food, right?
Yeah.
At least this is one thing that gives me a bliss point effect.
My bowl of ice cream every
Right.
single night.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's relevant when even if somebody were to come along and be like, if you ate a little better, it's almost like it's that much worse to be like,
Yeah, I don't know how I would have received that
Exactly.
information. So perhaps it was fine that nobody mentioned it. But yes, it wouldn't have crossed my mind. And really, I fully invested in that. The only way to manage this is with medication.
Exactly. And that's the key is it's just, I mean, Robyn, right now, I don't know, what, 80, maybe 90% of the Western world believes what I just said, which is that bipolar, medication. It's your only means of managing this disease. Full stop. Sorry that you've got this, but it's going to take medication from, it's just how it's going to have to go this way.
And
right?
that's the messaging we're putting out there. I mean, look at TV or ads that are for mental health or there's all these just mental health organizations that are out there. It's like, ask for help, get help. Well, the help that their suggestion is sponsored by some pharmaceutical company in the end. Like, it looks like it's some sort of nonprofit group or whatever, but it's sponsored by a pharmaceutical company, because ultimately our only choice is to pop a pill. That's, and in hindsight now, it's like this, or for many other conditions that are out there, we are conditioned, as you said, to think that we have some sort of pharmaceutical deficiency. And the only way to fix that is to take the pharmaceutical, and that will make everything better. And that's not how that is. So but that's exactly what I thought that whole time. I just thought this is the only thing that's going to make me better. So I was really strict. Like, I took my pills on time. I took them when I was supposed to. The very, very rare occasion that I would miss one, it knocks everything out of whack. So I wouldn't miss it because I couldn't have that on top of everything else. I just took my pills. But I'm in this desert, right? That psychiatry office closes.
Of course.
So ultimately, I just scoop up all of my medications and I go back to my general practitioner and I say, I can't have my husband take off 2 days of work so that I could travel on an overnight trip to go see someone just to get my pills changed. And so he starts managing it, right? He's just giving me what the last doctor gave me. And I just stay on that for several years. I'm on whatever this dosage was. There was no changing. It was just keep doing this. It's helping. I was able to do things. Like I said, I was involved with Scouts. So I was a leader. So I would go on scouting events. I'd go camping. I'd go do these things. But I recall being at a training, which is it's an intensive training. It actually, all told, takes a full year, but you do 2 weekend-long camping trips. It's all leaders. And I know some of the staff volunteers that are there, and they know. I was always open. This is what's interesting. I felt like, even at that time in my journey, that I should share that this is who I am. I wanted people to know that people with bipolar disorder live amongst them and they're fine. Like, they can be in society. So I'm on these medications. I'm pretty active. I still volunteering, managing it a lot better. It's hard because I have to, again, manage that energy. So if I know I have something coming up, like the days leading up to it, I'm out. I can have enough energy to do this 3-day intensive and then I'm out again. And it might take me a couple of weeks to get back, but I'm still doing things. So outward appearances, again, are that she's doing pretty well. It's all the time back home behind the curtain that it's a mess. But I had told them, and like, I'm on this medication. I have to take it at a certain time. And within 30 minutes after I take it, I have to be in bed. well, that's not how this training's going to go. I have to be at this event, at this campsite. And they know. So I take the medication and I can feel like we're sitting, it's supposed to be like a game show situation. Like scout training is fun. Okay. So it's supposed to be like this game show situation, and I'm on a team, and, we're all broken up into teams, and I feel it like start kicking in, and it's almost like drunk, like you're drunk, and I feel it start kicking in, and I notice that people are staring at me. I can't really, like, it messes up my speech. I can't really say much. I'm just kind of sitting there just loopy. And one of the other leaders, not someone that I knew personally, had come up and was like, Robyn, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I've had to take my medicine. They know about it. Go talk to them. Like, I couldn't explain more.
Right.
So they have a conversation and ultimately decide that I can be dismissed. Thank goodness, because I was not participating. I'm just like sitting around. I couldn't walk. You're not supposed to go on the golf cart, but they took me in the golf cart. They took me to the bathroom. They helped me go to the bathroom. They helped me change my clothes. They helped me brush my teeth. And they took me to my tent and pushed me in there. And I was like, now listen, you guys, you have to come back in the morning and get me and wake me up. Otherwise, I'm going to sleep through our morning call. And that's what they had to do. And they had to, this is a 3-night event. They had to do that every night. And so thankfully they let me dismiss early, but it really affected. And then, of course, people then notice, right? They're like, Robyn gets drunk every night at 8:00. What? I didn't see her drink anything, but she's not doing all this stuff. And so it did affect me, and it hit like that hit hard, but my option was to not take it and be able to participate and not know what you get from me the next day, or to take it and not be able to participate because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. My prescribed, action is to take this medicine. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've level set enough for everyone. The next big moment. What changed?
Okay. So at this point I'm turning 40 and I go to my general practitioner and he says, you're turning 40. Let's do some blood work on you. I'm like, okay, whatever. So it comes back and he's like, your cholesterol levels are a little high, and we're thinking about putting you on a statin. I will back up just a little bit that at this point, my husband had heard about low carb and had started listening to some podcasts. So I was getting a little bit of information about the low carb lifestyle, and specifically some of Dr. Diamond's work in statins. And I was like, I'm already on an antipsychotic. I'm already on an antidepressant. That's already like a lot to deal with. I don't want to add a statin to the mix. Like, that's enough. Enough is enough. This 2 is more than enough. So I looked at him and I was like, can I have 6 months to change my diet to see if I can control this with diet? And he said yes.
Good doctor.
Wild, right? Yes. So he said, yes, go ahead and do that. So my experience with low carb comes from Vinnie Tortorich and his no sugars, no grains, or NSNG lifestyle. So I start just diving into Vinny's podcast and his information, and he just freely gives this information. Cut out sugars, cut out grains. And later he adopts cut out seed oils, and a lot of what is troubling you will clear up. Also, you'll lose a lot of weight. Well, this is kind of the benefit of being sedated all the time. I never noticed that I was overweight, but I was in fact overweight. I never noticed it at the time. So I jump the day after my 40th birthday is when I say is my start date. So my birthday is August 5th. So I say my start date is August 6th, 2017. So I dove all the way in. I cut out all the sugars. I cut out all the grains. And My nightly bowl of ice cream turns into a nightly bowl of yogurt. I didn't like yogurt. I trained myself to eat it just to scratch that itch. I go back to the doctor 6 months later, and he takes my tests again. He goes, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Your numbers are all trending in the direction I want to see. So I'm like, okay. Well, also, I'm suddenly feeling great. I started going for daily walks just because I had some energy. Like I'm awake. I have some energy. I'm going to go for a walk. My dog was happy. She got to go for walks with me. And I don't notice anything else. I lost weight. Probably after 6 months of doing it, I may have probably like 25 pounds of weight loss, but that's not even, to me, that's not even part of the story. The story is that I have successfully managed a potential health issue with diet alone. And
in your mind, it's this separate category.
It's a separate category. Yep. I'm still taking this medication. Lost 25 pounds, no dosage change. We're just still going to go right on with the antipsychotic and depressant protocol that I was doing 25 pounds earlier, and the same one that I had been on for years with no reevaluation or change, because I've simply asked my GP to maintain what I already had, and I wasn't going to do anything different. Well, I take that back. I did, once I started seeing him as the prescriber, I did start seeing a counselor at that time. So it was like the give and the take it. If I can't have this, at least I can go finally talk to somebody about it. So I was doing that at the time as well. That ends up being like a really strange thing as well. We were talking about things that were happening in real time, trying to work through the things that were happening in real time, but we really weren't talking about the past, maybe what had been the root cause, if we want to go with those wordings. We weren't going much deeper than, I have this situation going on right now. This is how I'm responding to it. I don't think that's the right response. How should I work through this? Let's work through it. So that's what those conversations were. And she told me one time, you're a rule follower because you're OC and you're a rule follower. Now, when you come back here, I want you to show me that you got a ticket. Like, she wanted me to get a ticket, a driving ticket, and show it to her. And I was like, this is over. I'm not doing this. So I go home and tell Matt that this is what happens. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what this is, but I'm not doing it. I'm not increasing our car insurance because this counselor is guiding me to break the law. So we're done here. So that ended. But yeah, so I change how I'm eating, and I do start noticing feeling better. It's not, and then Matt has always struggled with his weight, which is why he was starting to hear about low carb. He's tried all the things. He really has. He's tried everything. And so when I say I'm going to do it, because he had tried it before me, but I was like, I'm Italian. I'm not giving up my pasta. So and when I said I would do it, he did it too. So we both kind of started at the same time, and he was feeling a lot better. And it was just like, this is it. This is what we do now. Like, there was never any question of going back. I think something that helped us out is that we never really looked for substitutes. If we weren't supposed to have bread, we didn't even make some sort of bread substitute. So I think that helped us.
No fake food versions of carbs.
No, right. I mean, and what I like to talk about with NSNG is how simple it is. You literally ask yourself, is this a sugar? Is this a grain? Does this have seed oil? If it fits in there, you can eat it. So, I mean, it can be a therapeutic ketogenic diet, but it doesn't have to be. It can simply fall on the low carb scale. And I really very much appreciate that there's kind of this spectrum of a low carb lifestyle that can work for certain people. And as I got further into it, I've dabbled in being like full carnivore, beef and coffee. the coffee debate. Um, but, um, but I do find myself leaning more towards very meat heavy now at this point, nearly 9 years later, falling very meat heavy. But I might have berries, or if I'm out getting a steak, I'll have a sweet potato.
So this was 2016.
2017.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
So you're both losing weight. You're feeling better. You're thinking it's this separate thing.
Still taking those meds.
Still taking the meds.
As prescribed, yes.
Then what happens?
Matt lost his job. And, I mean, he's the sole breadwinner for the family. My kids have, despite the fact that we moved a lot early in our marriage, we've lived in this place in South Carolina for 10 years. It's the only place my children called home. And he's lost his job. He looks all over. He even looked in North Carolina and Georgia just so he would commute this distance just so we wouldn't have to move. And he couldn't find a job. He's originally from Texas. And I kind of knew when I met him all those years ago that he'd end up taking me to Texas because that's what Texans do.
Texas forever.
Texas forever.
That's what a lot of Texans will tell me is this.
So I pretty much assumed at some point in our life together I'd live in Texas with him. And so actually, wildly, looking back at it now, at my suggestion, I said, why don't you look for work in Texas? And we'll just move. You can't find anything here. We're going to have to make some sort of change. It's going to tear up our system. Go look. So he starts applying for jobs in Texas and gets one, and he moves. He goes because the kids are still in school, and it's a transitional year for my son and his scouting career. So he had these camping events scheduled. They were both on swim teams, so they had swim events scheduled. And I was like, just go. We'll meet you there in the summer. So he left. He went off for a job, and I was in charge of managing the children, all of the events that they had, of course, taking care of the house, feeding everybody. The house was on the market, keeping it clean, just everything, because Matt's gone. Sometime in July, we pack up a van and move the family cross country to a place I've never been before, to a place the children have never been before, to a place that my husband's lived for 6 months, and just pick up and move there. We're unpacking. Everything's getting unpacked. We live in an apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, so the kids shared a room. And it was the 4 of us and our dog in this little tiny apartment. And I just was looking at everything as an adventure. Like, this is cool. We're in this city. We're in the DFW Metroplex. And, like, there's things here that we can do. There's concerts. There's sports events. There's just stuff. There's no hiking. It's a whole different story. But there's stuff that my kids are interested in that we can just easily get to now. It's just 45 minutes or so away in most cases. And Matt has family that lives in Oklahoma that I've never even met before, or we get to meet them and hang out. Like, it just like this, like everything was an adventure. I'm waking up in the mornings and we live in an apartment. I got to take the dog for a walk. I get up early enough so I can see the sunrise, because the sunrise is on this side of our apartment complex. And then after dinner, I take the dog for a walk again because the sun sets on this side of the complex. And I'm watching both every single day. And nothing is triggered in my head that I'm seeing all this stuff until I hear Dr. Georgia Ede on a podcast. And she's talking about what she works on is that the ketogenic diet can help with mental health. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've changed. I'm not who I was before. And then I get this just like compulsion, which may be the wrong word to use, being being OC, but I have this strong desire that I need to see if I can do life without medication. I just have to try. And so I tell Matt, I want you to listen to this. I want you to hear what she has to say, because I think I can do this. And so he kind of looks into it and he goes, if you want to try it, I'll be here for you. So we actually pulled the kids in to this conversation. Like, this is how important it is.
How old were they at this time?
My daughter was in sixth grade, and my son was going in. No, my daughter was going into fifth grade, and my son was going into eighth grade. So they're middle school age. And so we pull them in, and I'm like, I need to try to take myself off these medications. I need you guys to be really open with me, because I feel like you always took the brunt of who I was. If you think that mommy is not good to be around, you don't have to tell me, but I need you to tell your daddy. Because you guys will see it probably before I do. Mm-hmm. And everyone in my house was on board. I don't know if they just didn't, if they're just kids and they're like, well, she's mom and mom's going to do what she's going to do, or if they really thought that they had seen some sort of change in me. But, you know, we lived on our own for several months together, and they were still around to move to Texas when we moved. It wasn't that, I mean, the move itself is hard. It's emotional, but, you know, we made it. And, you know, I think they may have seen that adventurous spirit that suddenly started appearing. And I wasn't curled up in a ball avoiding what was going on around me. It was just like this brand new, wide open experience. So Matt and I go find just a GP. We didn't go to a specialist. And I don't recall if we said, like, I had changed my diet and feel better. I think I just said, you know, I would like to try to get off these meds. And she was on board, which is also an unusual thing, because most doctors don't
deprescribe.
Deprescribe. Most doctors don't know how to deprescribe, but we kind of worked out how that was going to happen, because I had told her, you know, this, like, it grabs me. And, like, if I accidentally skip a day, my whole day is like, I don't know if it's daytime or nighttime. I just, like, it just pulls at me in a way I can't really describe. So we knew it wasn't like I could go off of it. So we came up with a plan to reduce the dose over amount of time for both medications that I was on, which is a big part of this story, is that it is not something someone should try on their own. Even if you feel like, oh, I've got this, it's going to be fine. These bounce back effects that you may not know how to manage, you need to work with a doctor. So it may be weird that I didn't go to a psychiatrist to do this, because honestly, they do know how to prescribe and deprescribe, because they're managing these medicines all the time. I still worked with a provider that knew what was going on. And even at the time, I was fully aware that I might have to go back. Like, this was a trial run. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I have not been on them ever since.
So you did titrate them down.
Mm-hmm.
You were going fully ketogenic.
Well, I was NSNG. I honestly have never tested a ketone ever.
Oh, all right.
Isn't that crazy? So I've never tested a ketone ever. I was fully NSNG. However, at this point, I'm like super heavy meat based, always adding like olive oil and butter to everything. Very few, green veggies were out like pretty early on in my journey. So my diet is pretty like refined at this point, because it's been over a year at this point.
In other words, at the point at which you were going to titrate down, you didn't need to take extra steps to lower your carbohydrates more.
Right.
You were already practically what might be considered a ketogenic diet.
Yeah. So if I would go back and look at, and like I remember like getting the taste, you know, you get that like taste in your mouth. I remember.
Acetone.
Yeah. So I remember getting that. So, I mean, my best guess would be that I was in a state of ketosis or fat adapted, or however one wants to. I was at least at this kind of higher, if you want to call it levels. I was at this level that, I wasn't knocking myself out of it. Though that did happen. When we first moved there was ice cream. It was like, hey kids, let's go out for ice cream. And we would start going out for ice cream. And but like 6 months later, you're like waking up and you've got chocolate syrup all over your face. And you're like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be eating ice cream.
Right.
So, it's eventually self-corrected those times. And I think that is part of going through this process. It is a journey, and it's not going to be 100% all the time. But when you catch it, learn from that. And maybe if you go off again, don't let it go as far, or then maybe let's get to a point where you don't knock yourself off at all. So
you get totally off the medication.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the values of having a long podcast where you can get just the whole story is it's like I feel it with you. That had to have felt great. Like just knowing that it was possible.
Just having that option on the table, like I don't have to be on medication anymore. But it was these things. It was seeing the sunrise, watching the sunset. Oh, the rainbows in Texas are gorgeous. I'm driving down my children, like I said, are swimmers, and the swim team that they were involved in was like 45 minutes away, and it's just a flat, straight road. And I would have to pull over and stop and take pictures of either the sunset or these rainbows that I was seeing. Like it was just so beautiful. And my family thinks I'm just like not right in the head, but I hadn't seen anything like that in so long. It's not to say that sunsets and sunrises and rainbows didn't happen. I didn't see them. They weren't there. It was just not part of my world anymore, because everything was just so dull during those times, that dark time, like I said earlier. Suddenly life was vibrant. And then once kind of, part of the process of getting off the medication, I was also, instead of just walking the dog around this apartment complex, taking her to the park and going for like 4 or 5 mile walks with the dog once or twice a day. I started practicing yoga. I got very interested in strength training and just trying to figure out, well, what is it that I can do? Like all of a sudden, all these, I'm awake. Oh, and I have this absolute rule. I have a no nap rule that has been in place since I was fully titrated off of my medication, because that process, that time, sometimes you need to just close your eyes and
because you feel like in your life you hit your quota.
I have hit my quota of being asleep during the day. There is just too much to do when the sun is up to miss a second of it. And so I have a no nap rule, maybe with the caveat of being sick or having traveled in a weird time, because I might end up taking a nap after tomorrow morning's very early flight. But it is super unusual that I would even consider taking a nap. I can sit down, and if I need a chill out time, I'll pick up a book and sit and read a book, but I won't lay down and go to sleep. I've paid those dues. I don't need to do that anymore.
So now we get to the interesting twist. Wasn't all rainbows and sunshine, because you're all excited to get your blood work again, like I was after I went keto. The major difference is that while all your numbers were trending in the right direction, there's a term I like to use, which I call the honeymoon period. And we have some theories behind it, but we've observed it several times over, that if somebody goes the full journey, typically, of being overweight or even obese, like say Dr. Tro, all the way to where they're actually not just leaner, oftentimes they're even a little bit fitter, but particularly if they get lean. At first, the cholesterol levels, particularly LDL cholesterol levels, are low, going from overweight or obese down. But then they start to trend upwards, and eventually many of these folks find themselves in the lean mass hyperresponder phenotype. Presumably by this point in time, you're already familiar with the phenotype, or you've heard about it,
Okay.
or have you?
But no, it's kind of funny. It's like I'm going through this process kind of at the same time you're emerging
Oh.
with your information. So I'm aware.
That's right. You're pretty OG. So when you went totally off your medication, it was 2017,
It was
2019?
in 18 into 19.
Oh, okay. So you're right.
We are simultaneously going through our experiences.
Right.
So I'm aware of you and your work, but like it's really in the early stages. So
It doesn't, it's funny because for a lot of people who just found me and my work in the last, a few years, it may seem like this is much more common vernacular, that the lipid energy model is more established or whatever. And I don't mean that as a humble brag. That's just for the context of somebody who is where I was in 2017, 2018, 2019. This is all still very what's happening, what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot out there.
No, at that time, there's nothing out there.
Right.
We have some work on statins in particular and the questionable way they came up with their statistics, and not much else. But like I said, I was avid. I listened to Vinny's podcast. I never missed an episode. So you had appeared on those episodes early on. So I'm aware of this thing, the Feldman Protocol, if you will. So I'm aware of this at the time. And I go to my doctor, get the blood work done, and suddenly I'm getting very scary numbers to any traditional doctor that's out there. And there's a concern. And I'm like, I am not taking a statin. I have some information and I'm just not going to do it. So this is like a long journey of Robyn being a non-compliant patient. So I'm fighting being put on statins everywhere. Leave this doctor, find a doctor that I see that understands the low carb space, go to that doctor. They're like, no, you have to go on a statin. Leave that doctor, go to another doctor. No. And one of them I went back to because at the time I also started noticing, even though I felt really good, I was having some other weird symptoms. So I started to suspect that there was something going on with my thyroid at the time. And so the statin debate wasn't even really just knowing that you were out there trying to get some answers or asking questions and trying to kind of see what at the time you really couldn't test anything. It was your self-tests and other people who were following your protocol and what they were seeing. Like that was enough for me. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to test these things. It doesn't quite make sense. And it's okay because I feel okay. I trust that someone else is out there doing it, and I'm kind of staying informed about it. So I felt comfortable with my decision. Because at the time it is 100% my decision what I ultimately decided not to do, which was to take a statin. But I was worried about my thyroid, so I was going back to the doctor quite frequently. But I went to this doctor who ran the tests that I asked for my thyroid, because obviously they're not going to test everything.
Can I ask you what was up with your thyroid? Was it because your T3 was low?
It wasn't a blood test. I was having feelings, but both of my parents have had their thyroids removed. Oh. So I started suspecting that, and I don't even remember exactly what the symptoms were. I know sometimes my heart will race. There was just other things I'm blanking on what it was. I just felt like that was the root of it. And I can't take iodine. I'm allergic maybe that's the wrong word, but if I put a drop of Lugol's into anything and drink it, I break out in hives. So I can't, so I just felt like I had like an iodine deficiency, and perhaps that was affecting my thyroid. So I just started pulling that thread and trying to figure it out. But I had these tests done, and I'm looking at it, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's what I have been doing. And up until October, that's who I was as a stay-at-home mom. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I have Hashimoto's. So like I'm diagnosing myself just based on suddenly becoming, reading all this information. And I go back to the doctor and I'm like, they said, well, I've got these blood works. They go, why are you here? And I said, well, I got this blood work back and I'd like to talk about these antibody levels that are through the roof. Can we talk about that? No, when you get a nodule on your thyroid, we'll just remove it. You'll be fine. I was done. I was done with doctors at that point. So this is an aside from the cholesterol conversation. I ultimately end up and say, I have to see Tro because he's the only one that I can see that is going to, well, I can't even see him. I can't be at his office, but he's licensed in Texas. And so I start up with Tro. This is how this goes. He does so I was in the lab for like an hour because they had to draw like 3 baskets of blood because he does this extensive testing when you first go in for your intake. So he does this extensive testing, and I go and I have my appointment with him. He goes, yeah, your LDL levels are a little high. And I'm like, okay. He's like, so, and I mean, this is early on. This is, you're really just kind of getting out there. We're all just kind of starting to hear about what you're doing.
Can I interject one thing real quick? If you look back at around this time, Dr. Tro and I are regularly debating.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I'm kind of going to get to. He's like, a doctor, right? And he says, all of my training tells me you have to be put on a statin. This is what I know. This is how we need to approach this. And then he goes, but there's this guy, Dave. I was like, I'm aware of this guy.
You can actually watch his social media over literally, I want to say 2-3 years. And we had a lot of great banter back and forth. But he sounds almost like a hardcore pro LDL lowering, no matter what the circumstances, person in like 2017, maybe 2016. And not that he's the diametric opposite. On the contrary, I think that he would, if he were here right now, he'd say, no, there's thresholds for which my level of concern is there, right? But compared to when we were first chatting, he's way more okay depending on the circumstances. This is me trying to,
But he was, even at that time, he was like, this is what I'm supposed, is what I'm supposed to do. But it was almost like in the wind, I'm hearing that it might not be what we need to do. So I'm going to ask you, do you want to take a statin? And I said, no. And he's like, patient is refusing statin. And, and which is good. He's a doctor. He should do that. I'm not complaining. And so this is where he says, this theory is that if we're going to reduce the amount of carbohydrate that you take and your LDL levels are going to shoot up, I don't even think phenotype was in. I don't think the term, I don't think the LMHR phenotype was even out. I think that was later. Yeah,
you're right. Or at least I wrote the article in 2017. I don't know if it was really kind of as prominently used until like 2018, 2019.
Yeah, so this is
but the energy model precedes that. And and yes, the Feldman Protocol was meant to kind of demonstrate total consumption. But then there was the white bread and processed meat experiment, which I did in 2018, I want to say. Which precedes the more famous Oreo experiment because Nick kicks butt on that. But the white bread and processed
Which
meat.
is in between my most amazing experiment that
Yeah,
happened.
there you go. So I'm showing that I could take my LDL cholesterol in 7 days way down to 83, like in no time. Why? Because I'm introducing carbohydrates, which leverages the lipid energy model. So I'm guessing this is the intro that he's giving to you on the theory.
Yeah, like that's exactly it. So he's like, so there's this guy and he's doing this, and the theory kind of is if you are removing carbohydrates and these numbers shoot up, then if you add carbohydrates, then stands to reason that it will go down. And I was like, okay, yes, I've been seeing that. And I've been hearing about that. And so he goes, let's try this instead. Let's introduce you to a carbohydrate. Because at the time, I do believe it was 2019 or the end of 2018 and into 2019. This is when I was really a carnivore. I was not eating vegetables at all, aside from the coffee, which is another debate. I was not eating vegetables at all. It was 100% carnivore. So I was given 3 choices. I could have white rice, I could have oatmeal, or I could eat a sweet potato. And I'm not a fan of rice, never really was a fan of rice. And oatmeal is made for cookies only. And so, and so I chose the sweet potato because honestly, I love sweet potatoes. So just this thought that I could have sweet potatoes prescribed by my doctor is what I chose. So this is where I start every day. I'm eating a sweet potato. My instructions were this was to be my first meal and that I could not add any fat to it. So, as we determined earlier, I'm not much for breakfast. Which was before the mics were hot, but I don't eat much breakfast. And so it was lunchtime. I'm making myself a sweet potato. I'm sitting down, I'm eating the sweet potato. And honestly, pretty immediately it turns on like this trigger in my head because I do believe that I have a sugar addiction. So that's the carbohydrate from the sweet potato. It took one day and I was like, tomorrow I'm having a sweet potato. Like, this is going to be amazing. And so every day I'm eating a sweet potato. The measurements were not really given to me. We didn't have like an amount. I just tried to buy a sweet potato that fit in my hand to try to be as consistent as possible. Because in Texas, you can get a sweet potato that's like this big because everything's bigger in Texas. But I was trying to find them that fit in the palm of my hand or cutting them in half. Yeah, I was really trying to be consistent with it. So that goes on for 3 months. I go and do the bloods again. Trending downward, as suspected. Trending downward. He asks me how I'm feeling, and I'm like, well, craving a lot of sweets. Fighting it, but I'm craving a lot of sweets. And I'm not practicing yoga anymore. Okay. Well, sounds like it might be affecting you a little bit. Like, he knows. I have told him my history as part of my, patient-doctor relationship. He knows that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So he's like, it sounds like it might be affecting you a little bit. Let's change your dose. I'm your doctor. I'm prescribing you a sweet potato. We'll change your dose. So we move it to a half a sweet potato a day. And 2 months later, go back for blood work. It's still trending in that downward direction, not as much, but we're still getting that desired result. Only he asked me how I'm feeling. I'm like, well, I'm not working out anymore. And when I wake up in the morning, the first thought that I have is, I can't wait to go back to bed, which I know is a trigger. Is this like, that's the first sign I get. Maybe at that time, the kids were telling Matt that, she was a little angrier than she has been in a while. I don't remember, but definitely it was affecting my mental health. So he says, let's reduce the dose. So I go to a quarter of a sweet potato every day, and I'm in bed a lot. My no nap rule out the window. I start noticing the anger stuff coming back. And ultimately, Matt looks at me and he says, "You're done with this experiment. We need you off." And I agree. And actually, I had COVID at the time, and I'm sick in bed and asking him to make me a sweet potato so that I can have a quarter of a sweet potato while I'm sick in bed. And at this point, also, Tro says, "Yes, you do have Hashimoto's." So, like, my antibodies were not happy about having COVID. So it really knocked me out. And I'm like, "Just don't forget my sweet potato." And it was just it just wasn't good. So that was the only time in this nearly 9 years that I had a depressive episode. I did not go back on medicine. We knew what was going on. We knew it was the introduction of the carbohydrate that made that happen. And so, again, it's like a family discussion. This is what happened. Mommy's going to make it better. So I immediately stop eating the sweet potato and go back into like this full carnivore mode. But it took like 4 months to get back. And I'm like calling Vinny, Vinny, I need to learn how to work out again. Can you help me get back to a workout? And he's like, "Nobody has time for you to be depressed, Robyn. Get up and go do it." And I'm like, for most people, that would be the wrong thing to say. But coming from him, like, it made total sense. Of like, Vinny. "You're right, Vinny. I'm back." And I get back onto practicing yoga, and I get back to working out on my 6-day-a-week schedule, and I was doing all of that, but it took it took a good 4 months to get that back. And that was what I said. I told Troy, I was like, at this point, it's between me having this number that, to me, I don't honestly understand very much, and I'm not exactly sure how important it is. And the more I hear about it, I start to think, maybe I'm in a category where it's not important, but my mental health on a daily basis is way more important because I need to be here for my family. I've been working really hard all this time to repair the relationships that with my family members, and then to just eat a sweet potato and have that knock me off was just not an option. And he totally understood where I was coming from with that. And again, it's me putting... Even Tro said it at the time, we're in this no man's land.
Right.
We have no idea if it's good, if it's bad, if there's a population that it doesn't matter. We don't know.
We don't. That's why we have to do this research.
Yes, exactly.
You and so many people like you are exactly the ones who, I mean, there's all kinds of times where the drama of the day, the supporters who could give a fig about their LDL, the detractors who are like, LDL is everything, it's just a matter of time, and lean mass hyperresponders are really secretly a high-risk group. It may not be as obvious at first, but it will be ultimately. It's people exactly like you who don't really have a lot of room to do this, because there's many people who are metabolically healthy who enjoy going on keto. They see their LDLs go up, but they metabolize carbs just fine. They have no medical anything, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm stressed. I feel such a connection now with the low carb community that I feel kind of guilty taking on carbs, but I'm stressed about the high LDL." For those people, I'm like, just have the carbs then. Yeah. Because if like you're stressed about your high LDL, then you're not, most people I know who have LDL in the homozygous FH levels, which is to say an LDL of 500 to 1,000, those are people who usually have some medical condition as to why they are as low a carb as they are. And then in addition to that, if they tend to be more athletic, they don't tend to tolerate cholesterol-lowering medication as much. And I tell them the same thing Dr. Tro told you, which is, listen, we're in unknown territory. There are some things that I can say I have a strong hunch on because of the amount of time that I've spent working with lean mass hyperresponders, such as they do not seem analogous to children with homozygous FH. If they were, we would see it just, absolutely tearing through the Facebook groups and all that sort of stuff. I don't say that lightly, as though I'm so cavalier it must be exactly the opposite. But that's why you do a prospective study. You make a description of who you're going to recruit. We recruited not just lean mass hyperresponders, but also near lean mass hyperresponders. We have them get their hearts scanned. I still can never stop bragging that we had all 100 participants
so amazing
complete the study. Pounding my chest on that one. We have the movie filming as the documentary is going on. But we also made a deliberate choice, as you know, with the documentary, not to go for the people who just wanted to lose weight, who had lots of options. Mm-hmm. It's for people like you that we just heard you couldn't even do a quarter of a sweet potato. You, in trying to chase the lower number, which may be relevant, it also might not be. But to get to that lower number, you introduce something that you said a lot of the same things that I say, which is that I can metabolize carbs, but I know that there's certain foods that I treat like an alcoholic treats alcohol, like French fries. I will never eat another French fry, not because I don't think they look golden and delicious when they're done just right, because I do. It's because I know I won't stop, and I know there's almost nothing good that can come of it for me. If you told me, hey, I need you to lower this number in your blood work that's associated with bad outcomes for certain populations, it may not affect your population, but it might. Eat these golden French fries. I would go, all right.
I'll take one for the team.
I'll take one for the team. But in the scenario where I can metabolize it well, that's an easier call for me to make. In the scenario where it's even just a little bit of what you've described, I mean, the movie gets into this, and I think you've done such a good job in this podcast really driving it home. But it can't be stated enough. It's not just how much it's affecting you. It's affecting your whole family and your relationships with your family. And that matters. So by golly, damn it, Robyn, we're going to get this data. We're going to get this data.
I mean, I will say this often. I've put my eggs in that basket. Like, I understand fully that we don't know. And I understand fully that you and the team are working very hard to answer some of these questions, which will often bring up more questions, which hopefully we can continue to ask those questions and learn more. We're in this place where this is a novel concept, and we simply don't know. But I have to make a decision. And what's really funny is I didn't realize that I was making this decision. I was on a podcast with Casey Ruff. I was on Boundless Body Radio, and he asked me, and it's the funniest question, because I was like, I don't know, I'd be dead. That was my answer. But he was like, would you change anything if you could go back? Would you change anything between your mental health and this number? And I was like, no, absolutely not. And I had never, until he asked me that, thought of it that way. Like, I'm making a conscious decision to prioritize my mental health over an LDL number because I trust that you're out there doing this work that you're doing. And that really is what it is. Like, which is totally high praise that you've worked very hard with how honest you're going about this, about, the integrity of everything that you're trying to accomplish and the questions you're asking and how you're trying to answer those questions and crowdfunding. Like, there's so much integrity in the whole process that it was a no-brainer. It was literally a no-brainer. I never thought about it as a detrimental decision to my health to choose not to be on a statin. I always thought of it as, they're going to figure it out. I'm on this ride. I'm okay, 100% okay with being on this ride because my mental health is that important. My relationships are that important. The way my house is now, and there's love there, is so much more important than this number on this test. And no one can convince me otherwise until maybe there's something that comes out counter to what you're putting on. And again, that's how science works, right? We're supposed to ask these questions.
Yeah.
And, if somebody says, I'm not certain I feel good about the question you've asked, then I invite you to make your own study to try to counter that. And that's how that should work. So
that's a lot of what I was saying last year. I tell you what, last year was, I'm writing a manuscript that's kind of telling this story, and there's so much that I've not been able to share publicly, but is at the same time it's this broader process of just truth seeking, trying to get to the real answers. And I think last year was fascinating because in a roundabout way, it created a situation that tested everybody. It was like a broad test with the April 7th paper in particular. And at the time that we're recording this, there's going to be some breaking news.
Oh.
I'll tell you more about that offline, though I'll be swearing you to secrecy and so forth.
Yes, of
course. But there's a reoccurring theme that I'll concede is in the manuscript, which is that I have wanted at every stage of this to maintain and pursue transparency and accomplish getting just as much of these scans acquired in the most integral way possible, in every way that we could capture this data with strong fidelity, and ideally with even a mixed hypothesis team. That's what I set out to do. And then we got some curveballs along the way, and one of them ended up being the biggest one. Internally, we call it the clearly curveball.
Why would you make a tongue twister as your internal code? But okay.
Exactly. Well, it was easier to say when I was, but maybe it's just easier to say when there's a little more emotion behind it. But it also provided this powerful new set of data on the outside of the study. And that's a thing that's almost kind of been a source of fascination for me and I not only talk about this in the manuscript, I'll be talking about this at the conference briefly, which is that there was a kind of alignment of people who were very pro LDL lowering, particularly on social media, to acquire half of the story and report on that half, but in leaving the other half out. And that became kind of an interesting moment for me because a number of those people were people who I had established relationships with. There are a number of people who, and I believe this is important to science, you can't just be in an echo chamber. You need to be connecting with people who challenge you and challenge your ideas, but who you could count on to share this larger journey of seeking the truth with. And to an extent, that became a new understanding for me on the next stage of this study. Because while we did have the April 7th paper get released from last year, we have an important thing coming up that you're probably already familiar with, which is this 5-year extension. Mm-hmm. And already I've had a number of participants. I don't think we'll get anywhere close to the same 100, but a number of the participants have already committed to, just let us know. And that would start this year. That'd start in October of this year if we get this off the ground. But Robyn, I do not want to get this off the ground until every lesson learned from not just all the years before this point, but last year in particular, is not locked down. For example, I'm not going to put up with another curveball. It's too much at stake. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with the contracting and with the quality control, stuff like that, where all of us can feel that confidence together that the data we're about to get, knock on wood, that we're about to get, we can have the highest level of trust in. And boy, am I glad we had cameras around filming it all as it was happening, because it makes it all that much more interesting.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah, it really is. And, we talked about it, about just like that time period between the paper coming out and the remainder of the results that we were waiting for with that. And it was an interesting time for all of us because, you guys had to kind of stop talking because you're following scientific procedure. But then we have this whole realm of social media does not turn off.
Nope.
And it's going to keep going. And we're watching in real time kind of people we're familiar with, people we've, like you said, you've established relationships, come out of the woodwork, like organized. It seemed very organized and just like opposing and picking it apart. And it was like, something's not right and there's more. And I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to wait it out. Again, I'm just like, I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to see what happens. I know a lot of our friends have got kind of defensive, but that's really not how it works. You just got to wait for the process to roll out. And that is an important piece of it, is learning, okay, I'm going to do a further study. Now I've kind of got this information here that I need to look into. How do I do that differently and learn from that and apply that next time to try to avoid it? But, things are going to pop up. Not everything is avoidable. And it created quite a conversation that suddenly got quiet.
Yes. Well, that was one of the most fascinating things, is that the April 7th paper comes out in July. We finally have a separate additional quantitative analysis in heart flow. And talk about night and day, radically different from the Clearly analysis of the same scans. Mm-hmm. These are the same 200 scans. And this has been one of the most important things for people to understand. These analyses, they're like different lenses looking at the same scene, if you will. And throughout this, as it's happening, we're sharing the data back with Clearly. We're going, now would you consider doing a quality control check, given that the data that you gave us, there's a lot of anomalies that we just want to at least do a quality control check on. Again, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of people who are paying close attention to this. And what I found was sort of different between, and I'm not going to call anyone out, but I'll just say a number of the researchers that I was working with versus a number of the engineers I work with and have worked with my whole life, is in the realm of research, there could be just some weird data. The vendor providing the data might be like Clearly was doing, and just saying, well, we're not going to do a quality control check. You've got what you've got, or we're going to stand by it. That would never fly in engineering. There's no way. You're
bridging a gap that I don't know that they want it bridged.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and from the researchers' perspectives, they're like, well, if it's strange, that's fine. We get other analyses, and then we, report on the other analyses, and then build on that, right? And I'm like, I went through, and I want to say this without it sounding as bad as it's probably going to sound, but I just need to say it the way it is. I remember my first science class, and check your work was a common thing that I was told then, right? So if I'm like getting all the stuff together, I can't imagine telling my like fourth grade science teacher, oh no, you can't look at how I came up with this. You're just going to have to trust me that that's how it is. I was just beside myself. So I'm part of why I couldn't be as public about these issues, even though I was hinting to them, is behind the scenes. I'm trying to just get them to do what I believe we were due to get, which was the proper validated analysis. And the other thing about it was everybody else who was doing quantitative analyses would do a quality control check if it was requested, so long as we pay for it, which we've offered to do. Mm-hmm. We would do all of them again, easily, as long as Clearly did theirs again if we paid for it, right? And this was a big point of frustration for people like you who are waiting on this data.
Yes, absolutely.
So a lot of people like you were contacting me and they're going, hey, what's going on here? And privately, I would say, we're trying to figure that out, but I didn't. But again, this also comes back to integrity. What if it really was an honest mistake on the part of this company who's providing this data? I needed to give them maybe some internal room. Okay, fine. Let's wait until HeartFlow comes back. Hey, HeartFlow sure enough turned out to have the patterns that I was critical of clearly not having. It's not too late. You can still provide us this quality control check so that we can see the data, right? It didn't happen. Then finally Q-angio comes in. So we now have 2 quantitative analyses and really 3 overall analyses at odds with clearly and in agreement with each other.
Yeah.
Everybody's got low, I shouldn't say everybody. The median plaque progression is actually low. But on top of that, we have a whole bunch of verified regressors with LDL levels like yours and mine, right? And it wasn't enough. That wasn't, for a lot of the researchers, they would have said, that's enough. Let's go ahead and publish the new.
We need to check it. And
I still believe that we're due. And so this will be talked about in the manuscript. And I think I can mention this much, but I'll just say the reason it took longer still is that behind the scenes, we were getting lawyers involved. And I didn't just go to bat for everybody. I wasn't going to leave the stadium until we got it. Anyway, long story short, something has happened that I'm satisfied enough with. Did I get exactly what I wanted? No. But yeah, there's news that'll be breaking soon that I can share with you and that I just can't record at this time on the podcast. But the larger arc of all of this, Robyn, is that we do need to trust medicine to try to get answers that may be against their present day hypotheses, that may lead to more deprescribing.
Yes.
Or no prescribing at all.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the journey you just told us.
Yes.
You'd still be on those meds.
Absolutely.
To this day. If you hadn't come across this diet or
heard Dr. Eid.
Yes.
I mean, if she decided to just stay in her silo and do her work and not bring that forth because it is against everything anybody's ever heard, I would not have heard about it, and I would still be on that medicine, and I would be sedated. Just, that's full stop. I would not know that it would be an option that I could try.
Right. It would just, it'd be the only option you'd be aware could be possible.
Yeah. And you got slapped in the face with this kind of, the way science has sadly moved is that you dig in your heels.
Right.
I'm going to defend my hypothesis at all costs, and it's a war, which is not what we were taught when we were taught science. You're asking questions and you're seeking answers, and if the answer you get isn't what the answer you thought you were going to get, ask more questions and seek more answers. And it takes this engineer to come in out of nowhere to be like, no, that's not how the scientific method works, and I think we should do it this way. And yeah, it's caused a battle that should not exist. And if you're following along, it makes you start asking questions about other science that you're getting hit with all the time, and its quality and its integrity, and it could send someone down some crazy rabbit holes. But this is happening, and we're told to trust the science. And you come back with the science is not settled, and it's like that's it right there. It's
never settled.
No.
And that brings us full circle to, yes, we, beyond just chatting with Clearly, we get to the point of where Q-angio is in hand, and everybody who is chatting a lot in the wake of the April 7th paper, because of being that attached to the Clearly data set, is now quiet as of both heart flow and Q angio coming back. And I don't bring this up to like run a victory lap or anything to that extent. The reason I bring this up is because that data only could have come from the circumstance of this curveball. That's the irony. Mm-hmm. The irony is that provided a kind of metadata, if you will. Metadata, yeah. But data around the meta of this larger discussion on whether or not we can trust that everybody is on board with helping us to try to get to the real answers. Because at the end of the day, I want to know about all of it, mm-hmm. including what my own research friends would be like, there's been enough that, we now have all of these additional analyses, so we can just move on. I'm still the jerk who's going, I don't want to move on yet. I want to do everything in my power to get the analyses of the data set in its strongest form. It should be validated. And like I said, there's a version that I'm satisfied enough with that's coming out soon.
Well, that's good news. And it's interesting also is that you are spent a lot of time, energy, I'm sure finances, because you've changed exactly, what you were doing as your career. You've put all, and we're talking about a subset of people. But to me, it's so much bigger is that we don't do studies overall on a healthy population.
Oh my God. Yes. Don't even.
I'm sure this will send you down a road, but it's.
I've never gotten off the road.
That's eye-opening, right? Like we are bombarded with scientific facts from the pharmaceutical companies on the television screens, and it's like, did they test a healthy population? Was that even a question? No. It wasn't.
No,
or even just your general kind of blood work where you're looking at those averages and you fit in this range and you get your piece of paper back and you're green, yellow, or red. Was that done on a healthy population? Or are we doing this average population, which on average is a sick population? That's what I'm saying. Like, it makes you ask so many more questions about the decisions that you personally, like, I have to make these decisions because I'm not sure if I fit in these numbers anymore. Like, I've done this work to make myself healthy, or in my opinion, healthy. Do I fit anywhere anymore? And the answer is kind of no. Now, there's a lot of, like, we know that there's a lot of us that fit there, but we're still, it doesn't change. It doesn't change the fact that there's no money involved to study us. There's no incentive to see what happens with healthy people in these situations. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. So yeah, I still live in no man's land because of this LDL, this lipid energy model. I still live in this no man's land, but I'm still confident in my decision. But also, like, I start asking questions about all of the other things also. Like, it can become kind of overwhelming, and it's really just unfortunate, sad, infuriating that that's not a question. Why aren't people asking this question?
But I think that you represent such a common story that we run into with people, especially who are low carb. So I grew up my whole life hearing the opposite advice and how I need to get away from saturated fat and meat, and I need to be heading more towards salad and greens. And this isn't even to be dismissive of what value they can have, only that I'm hearing my whole life that red meat is effectively poisonous, that it's killing me softly, but it's definitely killing me. There's not, and the meat of today, I'm like, it's actually one of the most nutritious things. Mm-hmm. Like the complement of the amino acids alone should be touted left and right and everywhere because it's so complete for what it is. Just 9 ounces of steak is all of them. It's all the amino acids, both the essential and non, right? So, okay. Why is it that I spent decades and decades and decades hearing all of this demonization of it, and then when I go into a diet where that's quite, clearly in the center of what I'm eating, I achieved some of the best health I've ever had in my life. Going low carb was really life-changing for me. And I have said this many times on the podcast up to this point. I know many people who are on a high carb diet and they're doing fine. They typically are more athletic.
Mm-hmm.
So they typically are burning off the glucose before the glycogen, tops off and starts creating lots of other problems. But in general, I definitely feel like I can state this, which is never mind how the Western world has such an epidemic of particularly type 2 diabetes. There can be a lot of debate as to how we got to that state. What I can say is definitely within my own family and friends, the strongest means of managing it is in bringing down carbohydrates. And that's for people who have that. And that's more what's in our immediate view. But thank goodness for the bazookies taking us into this whole new frontier on mental illness. And how many of these things connect back to metabolic health, which I myself am embarrassed to say, as an engineer, I wasn't connecting, right? Of course, what you're consuming is very relevant to the health of your brain, which is an organ in your body. Of course, things like being hyperinsulinemic is going to be very relevant. How do we keep finding ourselves as a fairly intelligent species overlooking that?
We've just gotten into this frame of mind, and that everything needs to be specialized. It can't be a wide picture view. You go to a brain doctor, you go to a heart doctor, you go to a foot doctor. Like, nothing's connected anymore. And we've created that. I said it. It's funny that came out in the one of the trailers that was just put out, where it's me being interviewed with after we saw the film, and I was like, we could change our whole society. And that's it. That's where I am. Like, all the time I'm thinking about, if the population was eating like this, we wouldn't have this happening. If the population was, and I just can't stop thinking about how much could change overall at even, we see it inside of our family, but what could happen overall at a societal level if this was more widely accepted and we weren't putting on our masks anymore. We could be our authentic selves because we're so free and clear in our mind.
It's fascinating to me how much this selling point that a lot of people latch onto is the cost, like healthcare costs, and how it's ballooning out of control. Because it's so hard to describe in words what you experienced, where you go on this diet and you're losing weight, and without a Vinnie Tortorich over your shoulder going, hey, go work out, you're spontaneously choosing to go walk more. You're choosing to take up yoga. You don't realize it's easier to do the things that you might have associated a health nut being interested in. And that's hard to describe to a person, that actually when you attain more health, it's self-perpetuating. Mm-hmm. Now, it goes both ways. You can fall off and then get caught in a spiral where things keep getting worse. But it's easy to forget how much your metabolic health actually affects your energy levels to do these things, and even affects, therefore, your interest in getting them done. But that cannot be understated. This is why with a lot of my friends and family, I'm just like, can you give me just 30 days? Mm-hmm. Just 30 days. I want to get your blood work at the beginning, and I want to get it at the end. And then here's the benefit of doing a controlled experiment that's not in a given, that's not like, say, New Year's resolution or something like that. Is you're the person who's pulling the trigger to shift it over. And then I want you to be aware of what's changed. Because I'll bet you things have changed. And you can treat yourself to whatever you want on the 31st day and keep that in the top of your mind, that you're, going to have a hot fudge sundae, you're going to have a, bowl of loaded fries or whatever. Fine. But in the 30 days, just just for me. Do all this stuff and then get blood work before you fall off the wagon again. Right. And I have about a 50% success rate so far. It's not perfect, but
I still think that's a lot better than a lot of other people. And so this is how this kind of leads into where this advocacy came from, where I'm a lived experience advocate, is because you kind of wake up and you go, I need to tell other people about this. So everyone wakes up and they start telling other people about it. And there's a lot of pushback. And then we have to kind of learn the hard way that you can't just go to some person and say, hey, you're dealing with this. Why don't you try this? They don't like it so much. So where do you put that energy? And for me, at that time, I put that energy into Vinny's Facebook group. And I just started being part of that community and answering other people's questions and agreeing with, just having conversations. Like, it's important to find some like-minded people. And I found that there. So I just started getting really involved. And, I enjoyed going on the journey with people. Like, somebody new would pop on that group, and I could kind of be with them through that whole process of them just, like, I think everybody goes through almost the exact same, like, emotional patterns, and everything is the same across the board, and it's your first time, so it's only you, but honestly, all of us have done it, but but going through that. So that's where that started. And then he asked me on the show, and I got a chance to tell this story of my mental health, which kind of changed how I looked at it. Like, it changed the importance of it for me. I wasn't just doing it to do it. I wasn't just doing it for a random number on some blood work. Like, this was having some substantial changes in my life. And okay, so now how do we get this out there without pinpointing one person and saying, I see that you're having this problem, so you should try low carb or NSNG or ketogenic diet or whatever it is, and make it bigger than that, which led me to starting this podcast where I hear the stories, because I like you, I want to hear the stories because I think the stories are powerful. And the more we can get them out there, the more ears that can hear it, the more people who might try it. So that led me to that. And then
I wanted to go to this too. So and this is on YouTube. What's the name of it?
My podcast is called Keto Biography. It's audio. I actually promote the audio more than I promote. It is also on YouTube, but you can find it wherever you find podcasts. Keto Biography. And that's the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to just amplify these stories. And everyone has something. Most often when I reach out to someone and say, do you want to come on and tell your story? They say, oh, my story's not something special. Or they'll look at me and they'll say, well, my story's not anything like yours. It's nothing. And I'm like, those are the stories I want to hear. The normal, everyday, regular person who didn't have some diagnosis that they were managing. How do you do it? What keeps you on track? Why do you do it? Why do you stick with it? What's your motivation? Because that's where people really struggle. Like, I have a definitive, if I eat too many carbs, even if it's from a sweet potato, I'm going to have a mental crisis.
Which is why I said it the way I did earlier. People I know who are militant, perpetual keto, like, they do not get off. They usually have a medical...
Exactly.
And because of that, it's a huge motivator.
Yeah.
That is like having not just a coach, but like 10 coaches behind you that's going, hey, this is you don't want to go back.
This is not optional. For me, this is not optional.
Right.
But I do think that it's hard for some people who don't have that to understand why should I continue? Like, I did this, I lost the weight I wanted to lose, so why should I continue? And we can't know what you're not going to have in the future.
Right. True.
And that's the kick I'm on now is talking to people about who have had maybe an event or something happen in their life. despite the fact that they chose to change their diet and cut out their carbs, like, for example, my father, he's been NSNG for a couple years, and this past year he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was traumatic, absolutely traumatic. But he's on the other side. He went through his treatments. He remained low carb the entire time. His doctor calls him a miracle. They've never seen anybody respond to the medication the way he did. And it wasn't without the side effects. He had a ton of side effects. But he would not have survived had he not already been NSNG and maintained it through the whole process. I know that because I was there. I hopped on a plane and went there to be with him when it was at its worst. And so this is why I'm on this kick with these stories. It's like, so many people think, well, I've changed my diet. I'm low carb. I'm ketogenic. Nothing. I'm like, I'm invincible. You don't know what has happened in your past mistakes or the environment that you lived in or whatever. Something might come up. You're being protective. Maybe you're being a little proactive. And if something happens, perhaps you can get through it better than most. That's hard as a person who doesn't have such immediate feedback like I get to stay the course.
100%.
And I want those, I'm really passionate about those stories right now. It's very important to me to tell those stories. Like, something could still happen. Like, you're not invincible. How are you going to manage it? Part of it is you have a clear head. It can knock you out. It's scary. Like, you're being faced with a pretty substantial diagnosis. How do you handle it? Well, you handle it because you worked really hard to make your brain clear because you've been eating this way all this time. You're going to do the things you need to do. Your body's not fighting all of the everything that's in your system because you've been eating poorly. It's not inflamed, so you're not already fighting this inflammation on top of whatever else.
That's another topic I discuss here a lot. Because it is not unlimited. Your immune response literally is rate limited. It has to be. So in the same way that you don't want, your hometown to be under construction when the hurricane hits. You don't want your immune response to be wrapped up in trying to work with your highly inflamed, especially adipose tissue, your fat cells and so forth. But that's often the state of obesity, is the inflammatory markers are up because the backlog is huge. And you've got to, it's exactly what you said. You don't know what thing comes around. And there's this I think there's this weird thing in diet culture that there's one superior diet above all that can deal with things like all of them, like inflammation, and so forth. And the pushback that I have is that you can set almost aside what the diet is and get back to what the root cause is. The diet should follow the root cause. Low carb works well for me because of the fact that I have an existing level of pathological insulin resistance. That's why. It's not because I specifically want to eat low carb. If I could get away with it, I would have those fries all the time.
Yeah, do I see my kids going off and, getting an ice cream and I'm like, wow, that looks good. Do I look at them and just say, I want to watch you put it in your mouth and enjoy it? Like,
right.
It's bad. It's so bad. That's how I still, even after all this time, I still have that response. But, I
agree. That's what I want people to hear from me, because I still stress eat. I still concede that it's not as simple as macros. There are some quote unquote keto foods I'll overeat. Talk about them on here. For example, there's no sugar added dark chocolate covered almonds are actually pretty low carb, right? Relatively speaking. But there's no way I could have them in the house because I'd eat them all. And I'd eat them without being hungry. Therefore, I cannot have them in the house. There's fat bombs that my sister makes. They're friggin' delicious. I will eat them all. If they're in my freezer, they're going to be gone. And so it doesn't work for me to have those. But I do want to be sure that people know that you don't. Too often people are like, oh, so if I just dial in these macros, I keep hearing from this influencer, that influencer, this influencer.
Gosh,
It all just gets easy past that point, right? Because I just wanted a Cliff's Notes, one video that I watch that corrects all of my eating behaviors and fixes everything, because I feel so comforted by hearing that person at the end of the video saying, and it's just that simple.
Yeah.
I'm going to be one of those counter voices that's like, no, this is
it's not.
It's lifelong.
Yeah. You wake up every morning and you say, I'm going to keep doing this today. Because you could very easily not. I talk about going to the dentist and having work done, and you're laying there with your mouth open and they're just in there drilling or whatever, and all you have to do is close your mouth. It could all be over. It could be done, but you're laying there with your mouth open. So yeah, this is not. I do talk about the simplicity of NSNG, but it doesn't mean that it's easy.
Right.
You still have to make these choices. I actually think it's to my benefit that I have this immediate feedback for my mental health. It keeps me on track. And that's why I'm very curious about how people who don't have this immediate feedback can maintain what their goals are and maintain how they achieve those goals. I think it makes it a lot harder. So somebody telling me I don't have much of a story to tell because I don't have anything to compare to what you've been through. And I'm like, no, I feel like that's harder than what I do. Why are you still doing it? Like you could have gone off the rails again. And people do. And people do that. They'll stay strong for several years and then have a bite of something and it sets them off for another couple years and they remember how good they felt and they come back. And again, that's all part of the journey, but I'm infinitely curious about how people decide why they decide to do it in the first place, what keeps them going, what things are they hoping to prevent, what things do they think they've prevented. Like all of these things, they're great. And so instead of going to one person and saying, I think you need to eat this way, which is often not well received, I kind of switched into let me hear other people's stories, because I know from my personal experience that one person hears it. There's that one person who hears it and it changes their life.
Yes.
So I want as much variety in that storytelling as possible, because there's a lot of people out there and they all have their different journeys.
And I feel like I can never say this enough. I worry that we too often over celebrate the fast success. So-and-so went on the ketogenic diet and went from 350 pounds to 175 in X number of days or something like that. Whoa!
Yeah.
And now they're doing blah, blah, blah. So what happens is people often sabotage their own potential success because they're not comparing it to themselves when they need to. It could be like the most successful diet that they've been on in all the diets.
But they didn't lose
tried.
135 pounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now they're not like Joe. They're,
Yeah.
The other issue is, and also something I bring up all the time, is men are different than women.
Mm-hmm.
Women, I'm sorry, ladies. Evolution had plans for you to keep as much of the fuel on board as possible for the babies. The men don't have the babies. Sorry.
We got a big job. We got a big job to do with those babies.
Huge job. And so one of my favorite graphs that Amy Berger ever made is what you think your weight loss should be like. And it's this straight, like perfect linear downward slope. She says what it really looks like. And it's like this, and it's kind of sometimes going up, but it's mostly about just staying on track, sitting through the stalls, getting through. you're remodeling your body.
Yeah, I often tell people that you're just looking for a downward trend. It's not always going to be down, but like if you look at
Right.
it month over month or maybe 3 months over whatever, if you're trending in a direction, that's amazing. You want you want that. But I think this question keeps coming up. And I've moved a lot into the mental health space, obviously. So when people reach out to me and they want to, talk about how to do the diet or whatever, and I'm like answering their questions, they always say, well, how long did it take for you? Because they are seeing these influencers, and I'm getting
Yes.
so just, you mentioned Amy Berger. She's been talking a lot about the influencers over the, like educators out there. In fact, I'm going to talk to her next week on my podcast specifically for that reason, because I'm upset about it too, and I want to hear her rant on it. So, in fact, I was trying to encourage her to use it as her talk for COSI, but I'm not sure if she's going to do it. Anyway, they see these influencers out there, and they're like, they tracked it all, and they were on these meds, and within this amount of time they had lost this amount of weight. By this day they saw that the lights turned back on in their brain, and by this day this, and it's like, and so they ask me, how long did it take you to feel clear? And my answer, I have no idea, because at the time, before all of these influencers were out there wasn't much talk about it. And I thought I needed to be on medication for the rest of my life. So I was not off of the medication. So the day the lights turned on, I have no idea when that was. It was just the day that I heard that possibly my lights had turned back on. Let me give this a shot. And there's been no turning back since then.
I think a lot of the big problem, and it's a big problem, is that we are wired to look for short-term results. It's how we are, quite literally. It's part of our genetics. We're wanting to gauge in these shorter slices of time than often meets our interests when we do need to plan for something longer. I actually came to this town for multiple reasons, but one thing I always wanted was to be able to play poker anytime I want, because I like playing poker. The full disclosure, I've not actually played poker hardly at all in the last several years, basically since the research started.
Some people are very focused on getting some studies done.
Yes, exactly. But one thing that I like about poker is it teaches you a lot about life, ironically, because the particular game du jour that everyone knows is the most popular form of poker is called Texas Hold'em. I like to joke that Texas Hold'em is a game that gives you a million opportunities to screw yourself over. Because really to be a good player at Texas Hold'em poker, you just have to be disciplined at folding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to just fold a lot. You'll see a lot of times a hand that you just want to play out of boredom. You shouldn't. If you're disciplined, you'll leave it alone. You'll be in a lot of hands that you did play, but given how the board is developing, you got to put it down. If you're disciplined, you'll do that. You get away from it. But then there's this one other thing that's way harder for people to master, which is that how hands play out, whether in your favor or not in your favor, has a huge amount of variance to it. And it takes 2,000 hours of play, assuming you play exactly the same way, to understand if you are actually a winning player. So, are you good enough that if you went to an average table here in Las Vegas that played, let's say 1-2, which is a low stakes table, that you would usually make money relative to losing money? Well, that would take a long time to find out. But you're not wired that way. So the 1-2 hour game you played last night, where you took home $300, $400, you're like, I'm a really amazing poker player. And yeah, a lot of things played out as I thought that they would. When I, chased this particular hand, I got there. But that was closer to, like, say, a 54% chance you got there, right? So the reason I bring this up is it's why a lot of people ultimately crash out of playing games like poker, even though unlike other games like, say, roulette or whatever, you're not playing the house, you're playing other players. But it's because that's how we're wired. The reason the game is so popular is because of what I just said. The variance is so high that it's hard for people to figure out if they're actually even that great of a player compared to the average player at the table because of that wide spread of variance, right? Well, unfortunately, that also kind of converts to diet, because especially if you have a lot of variety in your diet, it gets a bit harder to gauge these kinds of things, unless you have a problem with a particular thing in the diet, like carbohydrates, because you have a problem managing glucose in your body, right? So that's what I find to be kind of interesting about the whole process itself. When you were doing the sweet potato experiment, probably nobody could have told you, because you didn't know yourself, that at the point where you ceased it, after you titrated it down to just a quarter, that it'd be another 4 months until you felt totally back on track, right?
Not even just 4 months, but 4 months of work.
Yeah.
Like reaching out to my support, reaching out to Vinny, reaching out to people. Like, I need help to get back to where I feel comfortable. It wasn't even like I want to replicate who I was before I started eating the sweet potato. I just wanted to get to a place of comfort. That's how uncomfortable I was in my head.
And that story itself is the kind of stuff that needs to get repeated more often. I did a weight gain experiment in 2018. I don't know if you know about this. Literally gained 19 pounds. Tracked my lipids throughout. I was very disciplined. Tracked my lipids throughout. I tracked my body composition. I did respiratory exchange ratio tests, all kinds of stuff. Genuinely anticipating, and I don't know why, I genuinely anticipated that I would go up in the 19 pounds or whatever it was going to be. I was aiming for 20, but I came to 19. But when it was time to lose it, I would just lose it all. You know what I mean? Maybe it'd take me, more than a month, maybe 2 months, something like that. My baseline set point changed forever past that point. And so I now average around 6 to 7 pounds more than when I started that. Now, the weight gain period was around 6 weeks. You better believe I like to bring this up with family and friends who are like, well, for the holidays, though, I'm not going to worry about my diet. I'm just going to, I'll get back on track in January and so forth. And I'll be like, let me tell you about my weight gain experiment.
Because I still haven't lost it all.
That's right. I've still not. And don't get me wrong, when I started it, I was actually leaner than my family wanted me to be. Like, I was kind of a bit, militant low carb. But even if I'm as militant low carb right now, if I was eating exactly the same food that I was eating then, before my weight gain, I'm confident I would not get to the same weight that I was before. So, something changed enough and in perpetuity that I had to quit pretending that I could count on these short time spans to mean all the difference. Some things just are in longer time spans.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I look at it for myself, that I've been struggling for like 2 years, 2.5 years. I've had a lot happen in that time. It's been a joyful time, but it's been a lot that has happened in that time. And it's knocked me off my game, but it's not my food. My food is always the same. It's the other things. It's the yoga. I haven't really, I dropped it and I haven't picked it back up again. I can't get into that rhythm. It's the workout, the training routine has become different. I hired Casey to be my trainer because I couldn't do it by myself. I needed to lean on someone to make sure that I was doing it. Like, there's a lot of work involved. If you let it slide long enough, our set point is kind of at this lazy state. Like, I don't have to put any effort into it. Look, I'm fine. I'm just right here chugging along, and it's
That's
not.
I would argue that's kind of evolution, because think about it this way. When we're starving, we're motivated.
Sure. Yeah,
Right.
we're right. Like everything's right around us. We can just grab it.
Yeah.
We don't have to put any effort into it. So now we're making this conscious. Yeah, I understand. We're making a conscious choice to do these things.
When our Homo sapien ancestors of 200,000 years ago came across an orchard or it came across a pack of animals or something like that, and they could feast. Cool.
It was a great day.
It's a great day. Could be a great week. Could be great. And sure, they could continue like working, but I'm sure they felt, hey, I got the hunt done. I can take it a little bit easier now that food is here. It's in my belly. We now need to worry a bit more about making sure it's stored. Am I that surprised that Western civilizations, particularly given the food environment that we've created and the capability to do things like knowledge work, lead us to sit around more often? I'm not surprised at all, right?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I do like that things like standing desks are getting more popular, but it's really kind of regressing back to the mean. From a long way away. How many average people could you run into right now who happen to have a standing desk, much less like, the little treadmill thing or something like that?
Right.
Hardly anyone, right? Who's got a desk job. They're thankful they have a desk job. They're thankful to be eating right there at the office.
Temperature controlled.
They're
Lighting.
happy to be under neon lights or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the lights are. It's not outside. So our genuine desire to keep things rolling, to keep it moving up, that's also a bit on us. But to your point, it is true. It could be something related to things you have yet to discover. You want to know something that's come up 3 times in this podcast is mold.
Yeah.
That's it's gotten me a lot more interested in being better about detecting where mold might be around in my house. It's one of those invisible things. But above and beyond mold, just any kind of as yet to be found environmental impact is an interesting thing to explore because it can't be ruled out until it can be ruled out.
We've created this comfortable world. We've created this technological world, and we're sitting in it all the time. Like there's no escaping it. What can we do to be as protective as possible to try to counter these things that the waves that are going through the air, whatever? Like we don't exactly know, but we can do our best. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, is to do my best as far as how I eat or how I move or, the things that I prioritized going outside. I was waiting for Sharon outside, glasses off, standing in the sun because I wanted, no barrier between my eyes and while I could. Yeah. So, knowing that I'd be sitting in a studio, like I needed to take that opportunity while I could. Like there's little decisions that you can make. Mold is one of those things, like you can't know. I actually was very scared that my house was making me sick, so I've gotten some air purifiers, air scrubbers to try to counter that. Can I know if it's working? I don't. I don't. I guess I could go through a litany of tests to see if I was having issues or not, but I could tell you I'm sleeping better. I could tell you I'm in my house. Like it's very funny to be invited here to do this because to me, my world is I sit in my bedroom all day long because my bedroom is my bedroom, my workout space, and my office. It's just broken up into 3 sections. So I'm literally in there every day. And I was worried that my house was making me sick. So I was like, I'm investing in this air scrubber because I'm sitting here all the time. But you do get this kind of overall sense of feeling better, breathing better, sleeping better, all of those things because your air is cleaner. The environment you put yourself in is cleaner. And like, I don't let my dogs in that room. Like there's just certain things that can't happen in there. And, but you can't protect for everything, but you do have to be conscious of what could happen in your future and what can you do now to make sure that something doesn't knock you out later. Like, it's funny because my dad and I were talking about this recently. It's like, ultimately, we all have the same fate. We're going to die. There's really no getting around that. But how are we going to live in between? And I just don't think enough people are asking themselves that question.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that one.
Is sitting in front of a screen, clicking a button, is that life? Is that living? Is sitting on the couch sedated? Is that life? Is that living? And those are two very different things. They're the same, sitting still, but one of them you feel entertained, and the other one you're just sitting there. But is one better than the other? I don't know. I would say get out and go do something. Go do something active. Go learn something new. Be energized about the life that you have. Be energized about the in-between that you get to have. And I have a respect for that because I was sitting on the couch. I was watching that go by. I thought that was it. This is the best it's going to be, is me sedated on the couch watching. At least I get to watch my life, my family. At least I get to be in the room while it's happening. And then I go through this process and I change the way I eat. And there is a wake up moment, which I can't pinpoint, so don't ask me. Because it's different. I just want to say it's different for everyone. We don't take into account what got us there and how long it took to get there. But now that I see what I thought my life was going to look like, and the opportunities are now just spread out in front of me, and it's like, I don't even know which one to pick half the time. Like, it's just here, and I'm just excited. Like, I have this energy level and this excitement level that I didn't think would ever be possible. So I appreciate it that much more.
Let's take a quick break. I actually have a couple from the desks if you want to hold on for a little bit longer.
Okey-doke.
But I'm going to hit the restroom real quick. I don't know if you need to.
Yeah, let's take a little break.
You brought me a gift.
I did.
All right.
Now, it might stir some controversy, so maybe don't do it in front of the camera just yet. I don't know.
All right. I'm just going to show it's in this nice, huge bag.
Okay, well, for those who don't know, that's a very Texas thing right there that you just showed everyone.
Is the chipmunk?
It's a beaver.
Otter?
It's a beaver from our big convenience store Buc-ee's, but that is not where this gift is from. It's going to bring back a memory.
Oh, I know what this is going to be. Yes.
So
okay. It's just the one, right?
It's just the one.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to show it from this angle first, right?
It's a prop.
It's a prop, yes. So what happened was during the filming, while visiting you in Texas, you guys took me to what's it called? Axe.
Horse's Axe.
Horse's Axe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where there's literally a wooden target that you can take axes and throw it at the target to try to hit the bullseye, or at least get as close as you can. I think I hit it the first time, and I think on the second time I missed it.
Yeah, I have I don't know if I took a video, but I do have pictures of your attempts, and it's not as easy as it might sound. Like, it seems like, well, that target's right in front of you. You should be able to hit it. No, it doesn't work that way.
So I'm wondering how you got this on the plane. Did you put in luggage?
We checked a bag
I was
for
gonna
this
say,
specific purpose.
All right. Okay, so here's the controversial part that she's talking about. You can get an engraving, right? It's engraved, lean mass hyperresponder, LMHR. So I was, and you probably remember this, at the time that you'd made this, I was already getting a little nervous about posing in a picture with it because some detractors will insist that it's in some way making it a favorable thing, right? Because it is true. There are a number of people who are like, I'm lean mass hyper in a proud, like, I have the status of a lean mass hyperresponder. It was not meant to be that per se. Now, that said, Nick Norwitz is very different than I am. He's got no problem like putting on shirts and it's, having the triad and all that kind of stuff. me, and particularly in this moment in time with doing the research, I'm pressing as much as I can the position of we're trying to get the data, we're trying to find out. That said, I really appreciate the endearing gift.
And actually, I think you were doing your throws, and we came around the corner together, and they handed it to me. So I don't know if Jen made it, but or asked for them to make it. I don't exactly know the story. So it was handed to me. You were a little nervous about it. There's a picture of us floating around that is cropped, which is not exactly easy to do because of our height difference. So it's like my head and shoulders, and then like you way up there. But there's a picture floating around, and I thought, well, a couple of things. One is that, when you were first talking about creating this podcast, that you wanted this Rogan style podcast, and he gets gifts and he puts them all over his desk and stuff. So I thought you should have a gift on your desk.
Okay.
And then I also thought that this is technically a movie prop. And so that
true.
You should have a prop from the movie as one of your desk trinkets for your podcast.
I like it. I'll pass this one by the missus to see if she's okay with it. She likes a clean, organized.
I see
space.
that it's a very clear space, but
that said, yes,
I think it should live. I think its rightful place is here with you, and
maybe I can set up a wall thing or something where I can start posting things. I don't know. But thank you very much for the gift. It's great. It's super interesting because part of my research journey is really genuinely doing my best to kind of conform to what I thought was supposed to be these very stringently held standards. And in the course of doing this, I find that a lot of the scientists I'm working with aren't necessarily holding to a lot of the same levels of standards, particularly things that I thought wouldn't be said. And I don't mean this as like a general diss to them all per se, just that there's a bit in the sausage making. But I find that I keep getting held to a higher standard than everybody. In fact, one of my chief complaints that I am not always so subtle about with a lot of my friendly critics, people who I'm friends with but are also critics, is how much do you hold other studies to the standards you hold our study? Because our study, the Keto CTA study, really does seem to get a lot of, let's just say, asymmetric treatment compared to a lot of the other studies. It's the same thing with the lipid energy model itself. Everybody's like, well, there's this thing it doesn't explain, or that thing it doesn't explain fully. And I'm like, well, we had 5,500 words. We couldn't explain literally every single thing that can affect LDL levels. But just to be sure, you're saying any exception breaks an entire model. Do you really want to talk about the lipid hypothesis? Because then that means anybody who didn't have, cardiovascular disease with sky-high LDL, therefore negates the entire lipid hypothesis. But that's not my position. Again, this is why you want to get prospective data. So we'll get there.
I think that's because there's a lot of people that are from the outside looking in who are thinking you are talking about everyone, and they really forget that nuance of, no, I'm talking about a specific population here. This underserved population of people who are getting overlooked when we do studies. Like, it's right. So you're throwing a new, it shouldn't be new. It really should have existed all along, but you're throwing this new kind of wrench in how the science is put out there. It's like, you can't just blast through a range of people. You have to really be strategic in who you're studying. That way, when you're writing this up, you're like, in a group of people who fit this category.
Which we are.
Yeah. And so that is a standard, and I think it's an appreciated standard.
Right. But this is also why I can appropriately push back when people are saying, well, we have this wealth of data outside of this group that should be considered more strongly than the study with the group in it. Because my pushback will be, wait a second, the whole reason we're doing this isn't just because the phenotype emerged and provided this unique scientific opportunity. It's also because you don't typically research healthy people. Yeah. You've got people who have a different lipid profile because of being metabolically unhealthy. That's something I pound over and over again. It doesn't seem
And
to...
they're like, well, why would you study healthy people?
Right,
And it's like, well,
right.
because look at this difference. What else is different?
Right. And when the argument is, because the argument commonly is, well, patients that are closer in illness, they'll exhibit the events sooner, right?
Yeah.
And what I'll say is, okay, but if they're metabolically unhealthy, does it have a direct impact on their lipid profile, including their LDL and ApoB levels? It does? Yes. Well, and the common refrain, and I'm trying to be generous to them, is they'll say, well, we adjusted for that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's some statistical thing that we could throw in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you validating the adjustments that you know what healthy people would have had? I've got a better way. Study healthy people.
Yeah, they're right there. Like, you can
Yes.
just ask them. Maybe they'll do it.
Don't guess anymore. And sorry, I get a bit passionate about this, but please stop extrapolating from ill populations what must therefore be applied to healthy populations. Instead, study healthy populations, and if you believe in a healthy population, a given marker, never mind whether it's LDL or anything else, if you believe a given marker is problematic in a metabolically healthy state, confirm it. Just confirm. That's the whole point. Spend the money, do it, right? I especially, again, I know I keep like caveating before I say the things I'm about to say. I know doctors mean the best for their patients and care. I want them, however, before they see somebody who's metabolically healthy and whatever the marker is, assuming it's bad, no matter what, from extrapolations in unhealthy populations, I would like an interest in trying to get that understood, particularly if you're addressing it pharmacologically. If it's because you believe medicine should work, that should be part of the population of the existing study rather than just assumed that it applies to everybody. That's the key.
Yeah, and it makes me think about when you're saying this, like this lack of study, but we will study a pharmaceutical and we'll say it's fine for use for years, but the study only goes for 6 months. So what we know is this is what will happen to you in this is the range of things that could happen to you in 6 months. What we don't know is what will happen to you in 6 months and 1 day or further.
Yeah.
And we just take that as this is how studies are done. And this is like this broad brush approach that we should just accept it as that. And those of us who ask questions and even go so far as to crowdfund a study that is well thought out and very specific, that's the weird thing. That's the thing we need to question. That's the thing we need to push back on. And we're not pushing back on the way things have always been done because they've always been done that way.
Well, and you're getting to exactly the asymmetry that I'm talking about. It's often assumed that you can extrapolate into infinity what the present effect size change is that you're observing with a given drug. But that's not applied in the same way in the other direction. So for example, with our study, you could do that. You could extrapolate right now based on the data that we have that we're not going to see in the 5-year data. We're not going to see an association between LDL and ApoB and plaque progression, right? But I myself am not making that assumption because I only know the data that I have in hand. Don't hold that against me if I do the same thing with the drug trial. If a drug trial goes for, let's say, 2.2 years, I may say, well, this seems to be relevant towards the 2.2 years that they've studied. But we don't know for sure that it goes into perpetuity, that right. This is just going to change indefinitely. This is, by the way, one of the issues that I had with the GLP-1. I'm really thankful for how much I feel, in my opinion, for certain family members for which there was no other options for them because of what they are willing to do or not willing to do, right? So for those challenge cases where it seems like this is just the only way, I'm thankful that it exists for that purpose to the extent that it has been studied. But I've said to them, and I stand by this, I don't know for sure what long-term, side effects really will be. But I also have to bring up the other factor, which is that I also get concerned about studies that have run-in periods, something I've talked about a lot before this point. So how much the symptoms really will turn out to be in surveillance data, so forth, I can't say. It's also a bit outside my wheelhouse. I'll just say, as with any new quote-unquote miracle drug that hits the market, even one like this, which does seem to be real game-changing, just recognize all of them. Every quote-unquote miracle drug for just the general population rarely maintains that title. Usually enough things come out about it for which it's not that it just disappears, but it isn't quite as sizzling as it was at its launch. And we just go through that cycle a lot. So it's fine, anticipate it, right? Maybe it still is the best option. Just me personally, whenever I see low side effects in the trial and so forth, I want to look at the trial, and if they have things like run-in periods, if they have things like they power to events, if they seem to be focusing on particular adverse events and not as much on others, things like that these are all concerning signals to me. And again, just at least worth looking at on balance.
We really need to stop taking so much stuff at face value.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot more to the behind the scenes to the story that we don't necessarily know, and there's a lot that we don't know in the future. We have no idea what the future holds. Before the rage of GLP-1s, we thought people didn't deserve to have full use of their stomach. So, I mean, if we want to look at the light there, is that people are choosing to have a shot rather than having a major surgery. That might be a positive. Was one better than the other? Don't know.
Yeah.
The side effects that come after having a stomach surgery like that, they don't tell you before you go on the surgical table. They tell you what they know for your immediate amount of time. You're going to lose weight, your numbers are going to change, everything's going to be great. And then 3 years later, when you're having all of these really strange side effects, or you've had it for 20 years and you still can't eat a full meal, or you can't digest properly and all, they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that.
Yeah, I'm very pro full side effects, full reading in, full informed decision, especially for something very severe.
Well, isn't that what Tro and I did for a sweet potato?
Right.
A very clear statement of, we don't know. You're in no man's land here. What do you want to do?
And it's just, it's frustrating to me that there's not, that I feel like a lot of people in medical care, and I don't know how much of this is just genuinely trying to be beneficial, are wanting to speak from a place of authority, to give some kind of an answer, when in reality, I think those of us speaking as a patient appreciate when somebody in a care position goes, I actually don't know the answer to that question, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times that is the answer.
Yeah.
And I get it if you're, say, a specialist and it's in your speciality, that's where it feels a lot more awkward to not have a good answer to a particular question. But that's where it matters even more. Like I like to hear I don't know, not just from doctors, but from scientists.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't know, but let's figure it out. Let's find out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's appropriate.
Let's try this. Let's try this. My level of confidence in what I know about this thing is not super high right now, but you know what? I'm going to learn more when next I see you, or I'll call you, I'll follow up, things like that. And by the way, there are lots of doctors and medical professionals that do that. Thank goodness. Like a Dr. Tro, for example. But it is a source of frustration that I have had with some prior experiences. Before we move on, I got to get from the dead. By the way, I'm way late on this one. This is so We only have one sponsor. It's us. It's On Your Labs, right? And I'm supposed to do this in the mid-roll, but I think we're now well past 3.5 hours.
Well, with the power of editing, you can find a nice break in there and throw it in.
Yeah, we'll just push this one up front. No one will notice. So it's not like there's a continuity.
We should say something
podcast.
from the future, and then you can cut it and put it in the.
That's right. We'll just be like, yeah, this is how the podcast secretly started. Now, let's pretend we're starting from scratch now. And then all of a sudden it goes to like the real true beginning. Okay, all right, here we go. Get your blood work through us, On Your Labs. Private blood testing services. Ta-da. Okay. As you can see, I'm very practiced at this. All right. I've heard from many people that both nutrition and exercise can play a role in their mental well-being. What unique role does each have for you?
We've heard from many. Say it again.
I've heard for many people that both by the way, this is written by one of the people in On Your Lab. So they hadn't listened to the whole podcast to this point. So they read this before we got here.
Okay. Right.
I've heard from many people that both nutrition and exercise can play a role in their mental well-being. Oh, I see. So this is making a distinction between the two. Like it's true. We've talked a lot about how nutrition affects mental well-being. Do you find, so I'll just tweak it a little bit. Do you find exercise helps your mental well-being?
Absolutely. If we do this in order, I mentioned that I've had a couple of years that have been difficult for me. My diet never changed. My mom passed away. It was a time for grief. It was a time to sit with myself a little bit, I guess. It was a shock. Like it was very unexpected. So it knocked me off my game, if you will. So I kept my diet fine. I never went off the rails on my diet. I never do. That's just hard lessons learned in 9 years, is that I just can't do that. But all of the exercise stuff was out. I wasn't doing it. And I knew I needed to. I knew it would help me. I knew it would just give me some time to process and just pick up heavy things and put them back down again. There's so much good in that for me that I just wasn't doing. And I just tried hard and hard. I just tried really hard to get it back, and I couldn't. And I think it was I never felt like I was depressed, but grief will feel very similar. And I didn't know how to process grief without kind of feeling depressed. And I didn't know if I was doing it right. And I don't think you do know. You have to be in the situation, I guess, to know. And I didn't know. But something was telling me that if I just bring back this movement piece that I was doing before, even going for walks, like I was walking, my oldest dog is 12. She does not walk fast. So my walk is, a block takes like 45 minutes. It's not an exercise. It's movement, but barely. I'm stopped more than I'm walking. So even my more faster paced walk had gone away. But when I brought back being regular with my workouts, which did take me hiring a trainer, when I brought that back, the other stuff came back. So the walks came, like I would just say, I'm not taking a dog. I'm going by myself. I need to have some movement. The going outside and sitting in the sun came back, which is not an exercise, but I find it very therapeutic. That came back, and the weight training, all of that. I still deal with grief. That's things that pass, but it's not as constant as it was before, which had me just again sitting in a chair in that state where it's like, well, I know I could do these things and I'll probably feel fine. But so it is more than just diet. There are many different therapies, and if we want to get into that, is Metabolic Mind has their Think Smart. It's an acronym, and I will not remember all of the letters, but it's all of these metabolic therapies that you can do to help you heal and then maintain. And I actually leaned into that because I filled out my profile before it was launched. I was one of the first people to fill it out. And I wasn't doing the things that I said that I would normally do to maintain my mental stability. And I looked at it and I was like, I need to bring this back. I need to bring this back. And all of it was movement based. You just talked to Dr. Ben and he's like, go do an activity. Like, I needed to do an activity other than just sitting on the couch. I needed to do, and it does bring, so not that the lights went out like I was when I was depressed, but it was dimmed. Certainly, I was going through a lot and the light was dim. But now that I've brought these things back, it's brighter again. I'm seeing all, like the clouds in the sky that get gorgeous when the sun is setting, like that kind of stuff. Like I had lost it for a little while, but bringing back the movement piece really made the difference.
I got one more. And
can I say something about your sponsor?
Oh, sure.
I was reading a book about menopause called Going Menopausal by Amy Alcon. And Own Your Labs and Dave Feldman are mentioned in that book.
Hey.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, I'll part pitch, part, I guess, be a mini commercial. We literally have just been going off of word of mouth. Like our broader pitch to the community is we spend almost hardly anything on any kind of advertising. If anything, it's like this podcast, right? But the broader pitch is we keep our margins fixed. So when we get more bulk buying potential with our with LabCorp, we negotiate down prices on labs that get ordered a lot. And then we just go down with them. Like we don't make the margin, like we take the gravy. Instead, we just go down with them so that the price. That's why insulin, which gets ordered all the time, is like $14, $15, something like that, right? And it feels good. It feels good to feel like we're providing this means for which people can get their blood work directly. Because I say this with love in my heart, but it's just there's a lot of tests people want to get that their providers are not letting them get, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of people
frequently.
or they don't realize that they can just go get it. Like, just fill this thing out and they'll send it to you and you just go and get it done. But yeah, the frequency too, that's a big piece. Like, if you're really curious and you want to study something, your doctor is not going to have you get those tests run over and over and over again. So you're going to have to do some of that on your own, and Own Your Labs makes that happen.
Have you been to our new system? Like, we launched it, I want to say 3 months ago, something like that.
I did see that it was happening. I don't know that I've been on it, but Matt has, because the last time he had his blood work done, he went through Own Your Labs.
So we have our own portal integrated. You can now literally make anything your own custom bundle.
Oh, yeah. I did see that.
So you can basically just turn your last lab into a custom bundle, and then you don't have to worry about remembering all this stuff again, because you can and he can share it with you, for example, or something like that. So I'm proud of our dev team, because the entire thing's been rewritten, from scratch, which is great. So, okay. All right, here we go. You appear in the Cholesterol Code documentary as someone who experienced the lean mass hyperresponder profile after adopting a ketogenic diet. How did this change how you thought about tracking your health, if at all? Did you decide to look at additional health metrics or change in some other way beyond what you tried in the documentary? So I guess if I'm to adapt this a little bit more to where we're at this stage in the conversation, maybe let me ask this. Are there, beyond lipids, and you mentioned thyroid, let's say beyond lipids and thyroid, are there metrics that you've been a lot more interested in tracking recently?
Well, to go back to my reading of Going Menopausal, is that I'm now 48 years old and going through all kinds of hormonal issues. And so that's really been my focus right now, is I've read every book I could find that's kind of within the low carb space that talks about menopause and perimenopause. And, one is like, oh, all you got to do is eat fat and you're going to be fine. And, one
Back
of
to
them's
the
like,
other subject.
one of them's like, you've got to cycle your carbs. And, there's just so much different thought, but I want it to gain all of it. And ultimately it's me working with my provider on what I think will work best. But I wanted to have all of these different, learn about all of these different things, because I might want to implement one of them for an amount of time and another one for like, I'm not opposed to self experimentation. And I think that is something that I've learned through the LMHR sweet potato process, is that it's okay. This way you may think is going to be the way that works, but it might not be. Do some more homework and see what some other options are for you and your path and your journey. So that's kind of where I am now. That's my focus. It always is. My focus is on my thyroid, because I do want to keep it. As I said, both of my parents had to have theirs removed. So I'm doing my best to keep it, whatever that looks like. But then now on top of that, I have, life things, being a female that's getting old.
Yeah, kind of comes with the package. There was I'm trying to remember the comedian, but he's like, ugh, I hate shaving. Just, and he goes for a while on like, shaving as a man just sucks. It's this like ongoing thing. And for what it's worth, women, I don't know who negotiated your deal. You bear children, you have menopause, you have blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, fine, we'll go bald too. So
Matt will appreciate that one. Although he's on this whole hormonal journey with me. So, we say that women are going through a bit. Our significant others go along for the ride too. It's not exactly easy. So.
There's this super fascinating study, and I want to say it's out of Japan, where they were tracking, and there's a name for it, and I can't remember the name. Cynthia Thurlow would laugh at me right now if I was trying to reach for it. But it's effectively the cycle men go through. And in Japan, they had the study where they had, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, I think it might have even been randomized, but they were tracking and scheduling train operators based on their cycle, right? Based on the male version of the cycle. And actually seemed to have some benefits to like timing of when the trains arrived and so forth. So just saying, it's you want to jump on the bandwagon. That's fine. They all do. Exactly. We want to have our excuses.
Whatever.
So but before we wrap, I want to get a little bit more of an understanding of what you're now doing, right? With Metabolic Coalition.
Metabolic Collective.
Metabolic Collective. That's what I meant to say. That's also in my head, though, is the Metabolic Coalition, also from the Bazookies.
Yep.
These are all good things, by the way.
Yeah.
But yes, talk to me about the Metabolic Collective.
So I've recently been hired on to be a community coordinator for the nonprofit Metabolic. Oh, see, now you want me to say coalition.
Exactly.
You're looking at me.
Yes.
You're like, say coalition. Say it. Say it. Say it. No. Metabolic Collective, which I'm actually glad you brought up the Coalition for Metabolic Health, which is what you are part of. We can't get the word metabolic out of any of the things that we...
I'm not technically a part of it so much as I'm a strong endorser, again, of all of these. So I'm going to start with metabolic mind, because it's a little bit hard to explain, but it's not. And I want to give the bigger picture. So metabolic mind exists. What they have done is they've gathered all the silos of information from the different practitioners and scientists, and they do have lived experience stories on their site, and it's all in this one spot now. Whereas when I was going through my journey, I couldn't find information. I just randomly heard Dr. Eid on a podcast, and it changed my life. But now it's all very big focus of the Bazooki group was to put it all in one place. So you can go there and you can find practitioners, you can find studies, you can find some lived experience stories. So then comes in
which was next, which I guess you guys, this just launched a little bit before ours launched, was the Coalition for Metabolic Health, which is like a way to be, the scientists, the doctors, they're a little bit more accessible. You can actually go through that website and say, I'd like you to speak at my conference, or I'd love for you to be on my podcast. It's a way to have a little bit more access that you couldn't do on Metabolic Mind, which is just more like informational. And then Metabolic Collective is the grassroots. It's the peer and family-led arm of this. So we're not actually under the same umbrella. We're our own nonprofit, but what we are really looking at is making metabolic therapy accessible, and it's through the peer communities. So we're trying to really push that advocacy piece. And I told you in the beginning, it's kind of been behind the scenes for a while. So Metabolic Mind was getting a lot of questions like, hey, can you help me? Can you lead me to this? And they're not set up to take on volunteers. And this group originated as a group with Dr. Chris Palmer. They were trying to do an advocacy through him, and it just didn't work out, but the idea was still there. And Hannah Warren, who works for Metabolic Mind, was one of those volunteers. So she kind of saw that there was this space that needed to be filled. And they spent about a year having focus groups, asking the community, what would you like to see? How do you think this could serve? What do you think we could do? And so eventually they got some funding, and they were able to hire 3 of us to try to really amplify all of these ideas. And I talk about it often. All of the doors are open. Everyone has an idea. You wake up one day and you are free from these life battles that you had, and you just want to scream it from the mountaintops. That's where we come in. We want to harness your energy and we want to put it towards something that's going to serve the greater good outside of our bubble. So for example, I'm a podcast host. Right now, a project that I'm working on that's personal to me is to find out who in this community is willing to share their story. And if you're not comfortable doing a podcast, can we help you work on refining your story, give you some options to speak in front of some people in small groups, get you comfortable, and then get you out there? Would you be willing to do that? So I'm working with some other podcast hosts to try to get that as a project. Right now we have our very first group that was created is called Mamas, and it's like a support group for family members, Al-Anon based, where they kind of use that model. None of this, and this is where it kind of gets confusing, Metabolic Collective is not hosting these things. Metabolic Collective is supporting these ideas. So you, as a person with lived experience, or a person who's been by someone's side, has an idea, we want to go through the process of taking that idea and turning it into action. And it's just very exciting. It's new. Like I said, I was hired on in October, and it's January now. We've done a lot in that small amount of time, but the ideas are coming in. They're just everywhere. So being able to focus everyone's energy on getting these things launched. Maybe you don't want to launch a thing. Maybe you just want to participate in a thing. We can connect you to the people who are doing it. So it's really, we're trying to just amplify it. We want metabolic therapies. We want it available. We want people to know about it. We want people to know how it helps, and really from our viewpoint of the people with the lived experience.
That's pretty awesome. Okay. I think this is a good spot to wrap. How can people find you, Robyn?
I just recently changed everything to robyndobbins.com, and my name is spelled with a Y, so it's ROBYN Dobbins.com. And I'm on social media. You can find Metabolic Collective at metaboliccollective.org. And another one of our advocacy pieces is that we made a private Facebook group. Our intention is to connect people who have done their Think Smart profile on Metabolic Mind, have them kind of be hanging out in our group, so that if people come in and want to actually connect and speak with the people and find out what their therapies are and how they used it, and just bounce those ideas off each other. So I'm in there a lot in that. And that's just Metabolic Collective on Facebook. So
Cool.
yeah, I'm out there. Or just search up Robyn Dobbins. I'm the name that rhymes. So my grandmother had a great laugh when Matt and I were engaged. It clicked in her head, and she had this great laugh about my name rhyming, and I didn't think anything of it, but it's kind of served me well, because I can walk up to somebody in this space and I don't feel like I said, I'm the stay-at-home mom. I'm not like this person that's pushing research forward or anything like that. I'm just a person. I just say, I'm just me. I say that a lot. I'm just me. But if I walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm Robyn Dobbins, it's, oh, I know you. So that's been kind of fun to kind of play with a little bit. So.
Well, I'm super thankful that you were able to come on and share your story here. It's so meaningful, and I hope a lot of people get a lot out of this.
Oh, as I said before, if I can just touch one person and have them just consider making a change, then I feel like all of this is worth it.
Thanks for coming on, Robyn.
Thanks for having me.